Good evening and welcome to the August 12th, 2024 council meeting. Members of the public were provided with the following methods to watch and or participate in this open meeting. Attend in person at the North Douglas Community Complex. Attend electronically via Zoom to observe the meeting or to speak to an item on the agenda. You can also watch the live stream by accessing the meeting on the Township's YouTube page. You can submit written comments to the clerk's division and they will provide it to council members and will form part of the public record. I'd like to call the meeting to order now. Can I have approval of the agenda, please?
With myself and by Councilor Williams, that council adopt the August 12th, 2024 council agenda with the following addendum. Add number 12.2.1D, briefing solution of events. Add to number 13.2.3 bylaw report 11-2024 fence bylaw exemption. 152 Mitchell Street response letter from Paul and Cheryl Hanley. And add to 14.1 Councilor Tilly, RA, concerning how common communications.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. I'd now like to do the Indigenous acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Neutral people. We acknowledge the enduring presence of Indigenous people and their contributions to with whom we share this land today. Their achievements and their contributions to our community. We offer this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples of Canada. But words are just words. We have to live them. We have to respect one another. That's what I found. That's what they want. I had the privilege of working with Ava Hill when she was the chief, and she talked about all they wanted was to be treated with respect. And I had the privilege of meeting with Shirley Hill, who is now the existing chief. And it's always the same thing. They just want to be respected. They don't want to take over our lands. They don't want to rip us off. They want respect. And doesn't everybody that comes in front of us, each and every one of us, deserve respect? In Canada, I always used to say, we respect you first, and you have to lose that respect. And I hope we still live by that rule. So let's pause as we think about this for a few minutes. Thank you. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Seeing none. Council meeting minutes, adoption of council meeting minutes. Councilor Lawson, please.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Tilly, that council approve the following meeting minutes. 6.1, council meeting minutes, July 8th, 2024.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Next is Committee of Adjustment, motion to go into Committee of Adjustment. Councilor Williams.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Roman, that the council meeting adjourned at 6:03 p.m. to sit as Committee of Adjustment for the purposes of holding public meetings pursuant to the provisions of the Planning Act.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. I'd now like to call the meeting to order and can I have approval of the agenda, please, Councilor Tilly.
Moved by myself, seconded by Derek Osner, that the committee adopt the August 12th, 2024 Committee of Adjustment agenda as presented.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Seeing none. Minutes of the previous Committee of Adjustment meetings, please, Councilor Roman.
For myself and by Councilor Williams, that committee of adjustment approved the meeting minutes dated July 8th, 2024.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. This is what you call red tape. Next, we have item 7.5.1, minor variance consent application, PD report 34-2024-B05/24, A-0624, and A-0724, 43 William Street. Notice was given in accordance with the Planning Act. The Deputy Treasurer, Secretary Treasurer will keep a record of all persons who provide comments on this application and those who register with the clerk's department to request a notice of decision. So there's sign-in sheets at the back, so if you, whatever item you're here to speak of or be involved with or hear, if you sign the sign-in sheets at the back, then that tells the clerk how to get a hold of you to keep you updated on that issue. Those individuals will be notified by notice of decision or convening of future meetings on the application. Michael Campos, Manager of Planning, will present this application. Michael, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council, senior staff, and members of the public. I'm pleased to present to you a public information report relating to a proposed consent application and two minor variance applications that have been submitted for the property at 43 William Street. File numbers B05/24, A06/24, and A07/24. The purpose of this meeting is to provide an overview of the proposal received, to solicit comments, and to identify issues or matters to be assessed by staff as we move forward with the review of the applications. For the purposes of this public meeting, all three applications have been consolidated into one report for efficiency as they are interrelated. Subject property is located in the southwest corner of the intersection of William Street and Water Street in urban air. The subject property is approximately 0.14 hectares in area with a corresponding lot frontage of approximately 35 meters onto William Street. The property also provides an exterior yard frontage of approximately 40 meters onto Water Street. The property is developed with an existing single detached dwelling on municipal services. And under the township zoning bylaw, the property is zoned Z4 urban residential and is subject to site specific exemption 20.1.289, which outlines minimum development provisions established for a future severed lot on the property. The property is designated as urban residential and ancillary under the township's official plan. The property is also identified as being a listed property on the township's heritage register. And on November 6, 2023, Township Council approved the waiving of the requirement for the applicant to submit cultural heritage impact assessment, as there are no proposed changes to the existing dwelling being considered through these applications. The purpose of the proposed applications is to create one new residential lot for the development of a future single detached dwelling and to seek relief from provisions of the general zoning bylaw with respect to both the proposed severed lot and the retained lot. Consent application file number B0524 proposes to sever the subject property to create this residential lot. The severed lot is proposed to have a lot frontage of 14 meters onto Water Street and total lot depth of 35.31 meters with a total proposed lot area of 494.34 square meters. The retained lot, being the proposed lot that contains the existing residential dwelling, will have a remaining lot frontage of 26.45 meters onto Water Street with a corresponding lot depth of 35.31 meters. The proposed total lot area of the retained lot is 933.94 square meters. And currently it's developed with a 1.5 story single detached dwelling with an attached garage. Simultaneously, the applicant has applied for two minor variance applications to seek relief from the front yard setback of the retained lot and the minimum lot frontage and lot area of the severed lot. And so the following minor variance is being requested for the retained lot. Section 6.10.4 of General Zoning Bylaw 689/83 establishes that a building line shall be 7.5 meters from the lot line. The applicant is seeking relief from this provision to permit a building line to be 3.9 meters from the property line, which recognizes the existing build conditions of the lot. Additionally, the following minor variance is being requested for the proposed severed lot. Section 20.1.289 of General Zoning Bylaw number 689/83 establishes that the land identified as Part 1 of Schedule A shall have a minimum frontage of 15.9 meters and a minimum area of 630 square meters. The applicant is seeking to create a residential lot with a minimum lot frontage of 14 meters and a lot area of 494 square meters. Figure 2 on your screen provides a visualization of 43 William Street if you're viewing the property from William Street. The existing dwelling shown in this image will be maintained on the proposed retained lot. And then figure 3 provides a view of the subject property from William Street. And the vacant portion of the property to the left of the garage is being considered for the proposed new residential lot, as I'll show in the following slide. So figure 4 provides an illustration of the proposed area of the new residential lot with future access from Water Street. As you can see in this image, there's currently no built structures within the proposed severed lot area. However, there is a grouping of mature trees that will need to be removed to accommodate the future development of a single detached lot. Planning staff have circulated notice of the applications to property owners within 120 meters of the subject property, as well as located notice signs along each frontage of the property, identifying and describing the proposed applications under consideration. At this time, no correspondence has been received from members of the public. Any submitted correspondence received this evening or prior to a recommendation report being brought forward to the committee will be included as part of the final recommendation report. And with respect to comments received from township departments and outside agencies, the following comments have been received as shown on your screen. The majority of agencies and departments have no comments or objections to the applications. The township's engineering and public works department has requested a revised grading plan be provided that appropriately shows drainage being contained within the severed lot and similarly within the retained lot. And furthermore, they have advised that the applicant will need to obtain an entrance permit at their expense. And any additional comments received through staff and agency review will be included as part of the future recommendation report to council. And at this time, staff is recommending that no decision on the merits of the planning applications be made and that all comments and correspondence received through the consultation process be returned to staff for future consideration as part of a future report to the committee. A future staff report will consider matters including but not limited to all the comments and correspondence received during the consultation process, as prescribed by section 45(1) of the Planning Act, whether the proposed variances meet the criteria of the 4 tests for minor variance. If the proposal, in the opinion of staff, is desirable for the property, the impact of the proposed development on surrounding properties, and whether the development conforms to the township official plan and general zoning bylaw number 68983. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. Any members of the public have any questions or comments? Seeing none, councillors, any questions or comments? Councillor Roman.
Madam Mayor, I've gone by this property, talked with the forums. This is exactly the kind of infill property development that we want to see. There's lots of lots in the area that are underdeveloped. So I'm glad to see that they're coming forward and getting this project.
Councillors, any other questions? I just have one. How, does this impact the Cott property right adjacent to it, right beside it?
Through you, Madam Mayor, as far as my understanding, no, it would have no impact, but that'll definitely be part of our reviews to review whether or not there are any impacts on surrounding properties. So we will take the consideration.
Okay, so can I have the motion, please? I believe that is Councillor Austin, please.
Moved by myself, second by Scott Tilley, that PD report 34-2024 B0524, A0624, and A0724, 43 William Street. That PD report number 34-2024 be received, and that all comments and correspondence received through the consultation process be returned to staff for consideration in a future report to the committee on the disposition of this matter.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Next one, minor variance consent application 7.5.2 PD report 35-2024-A-08/24-3184 Elks Road. Notice was given in correspondence with the Planning Act. The Deputy Secretary Treasurer will keep a record of all persons who provide comments on this application and those who register with the Clerk's Department to request a notice of decision. These individuals will be notified of the decision or the convening of future meetings on this application. Christina Blazanovic, Planner I1 GIS Technician, will present this application. Christina, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The following presentations for minor variance application 808/24 for the property located at 3184 Elks Road. The purpose of this meeting is to advance recommendation for the committee's consideration on the merits of the application. The property is located northeast of the intersection of Northumberland Street and Elks Road. The property consists of an industrial building used for the sale of agricultural machinery and equipment known as Premier Equipment. This property is 4.4 acres in size with a lot frontage of 71 meters onto Elks Road, and surrounding land uses are primarily agricultural and industrial. This property is zoned Z9 industrial and designated dry industrial and commercial in the township official plan. The owner proposes to facilitate the construction of an addition to the existing industrial building highlighted in gray on the image on the screen. The proposed addition will be approximately 525 square meters in size. The owner is also proposing to construct an open-air covered exterior overhang structure along the eastern exterior wall of the existing building, which is highlighted in green. The structure will be attached to the building and the proposed overhang will encroach into the required side yard setback, so a variance will be required. Additional variances are being requested for the off-street parking and the outdoor storage and display of machinery. The owner is requesting the following variances. Section 613(1)B establishes that all off-street parking areas shall be situated to the rear of the building line. The owner seeks relief from this provision to permit off-street parking in front of the building line. Section 6.14 establishes that outdoor storage or display of goods or machinery is prohibited. The owner seeks relief from this provision to permit the outdoor storage and display of goods, products, and machinery. Section 15.3.3 requires a minimum side yard setback equal to 1/2 building height. The building has a height of 8.24 meters, requiring a side yard setback of 4.12 meters. The owner seeks relief from this provision to permit a minimum side yard setback of 3.75 meters along the eastern property line. And lastly, section 15.3.10 A through D establishes that the outdoor storage must be located behind the front wall of the main building, not within any side yards, and screened from the street by fencing or planting. The owner seeks relief from these provisions to permit outdoor storage in front of the main building within the required side yard and visible from the street. The photo on the top left is a view of the subject property from Alps Road. As you can see, there is equipment displayed in front of the building. And the photo in the bottom right shows the eastern side of the building where the proposed overhang structure will be constructed. There are no existing buildings immediately adjacent to this area shown by the yellow box. There have been no correspondence received from any members of the public, and there have been no objections or concerns from any internal or external agencies. Planning staff is of the opinion that the requested variances meet the 4 tests for a minor variance as outlined by the Planning Act. The first being that the variance is minor in nature. A reduced side yard setback of approximately 0.37 meters is minor and is not anticipated to impact the adjacent property to the east, as there are no buildings or structures within the vicinity of the industrial building on the subject property. Second, that the variance is desirable. The proposed development will allow for the expansion of the existing operations, promoting employment growth within the township. Additionally, the ability for the business to encourage sales and promote their business is heavily relied on the ability to display their farm equipment in front of the building line so that potential customers can view the products. And the applicant intends to maintain the outdoor display in good and clean condition. Third, that the variance meets the intent of the bylaw or zoning bylaw. The proposed development is a permitted use within the Z9 industrial zone. And lastly, that the variance meets the intent of the official plan. The current use of the subject property is a light industrial use permitted under the general industrial commercial designation of the official plan. Planning staff recommend that minor variance application A08/24 be approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Is there any member of the public that wish to speak on this? Councillors, any questions? Seeing none, Councillor Jones, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Ron Roman. That PD report number 35-2024 be received and that minor variance application A-08-24 be a request to permit off-street parking in front of the building line, whereas section 6.13.1B of general zoning bylaw 689-83 establishes that all off-street parking areas shall be situated to the rear of the building line. B, the outdoor storage and display of goods, products, and machinery, whereas section 6.14 of general zoning bylaw 689-83 establishes that outdoor storage or display of goods or machinery is prohibited. C, a minimum side yard setback of 3.75 meter along the eastern property line, whereas section 15.3.3 of general zoning bylaw 689-83 requires a minimum side yard setback of 4.12 meters. And D, outdoor storage in front of the main building within the required side yard and visible from the street, whereas section 15.3.10 A through D of general zoning bylaw 689-83 establishes that outdoor storage must be located behind the front wall of the building, of the main building, not within any side yards and screened from the street by fencing or planting. Be approved.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Next is 7.5.3 PD Report 36-2024 A-09/24 43 Sylvan Drive. Notice was given in correspondence with the Planning Act. Deputy Secretary Treasurer will keep a record of all persons who provide comments on this application and those who register with the clerk's department to request a notice of decision. These individuals will be notified of the decision or the convening of future meetings on this application. Christina Blazinovic, Planner 1, GSI. Technician will present this application. Christina, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The following presentation for minor variance application A09/24 for the property located at 43 Sylvan Drive. The purpose of this meeting is to provide an overview of the proposal, to solicit comments, and identify issues or matters to be assessed by staff. The property is located west of the intersection of West River Road and Sylvan Drive in the Riverview settlement area. The property consists of a single detached dwelling and accessory buildings. This property is approximately 1 acre in size with a lot frontage of 30 meters onto Sylvan Drive, and surrounding land uses are primarily rural residential. This property is zoned Z3 rural residential and designated settlement residential and ancillary in the township official plan. The owner proposes to facilitate the construction of a single-story addition with a walkout on the west side of the dwelling, highlighted in green. The proposed addition is approximately 126 meters squared and will consist of a 2-car garage, master bedroom, mudroom, and bathroom. The proposed addition will extend further towards the street line than the front wall of the existing dwelling and will require a variance for a reduced front yard setback. There is also an existing retaining wall structure located along the eastern property line. The retaining wall is approximately 16 meters in length and approximately 1.47 meters in height at the tallest point. A portion of the retaining wall does encroach onto the adjacent property located at 45 Sylvan Drive, as shown on the image on the screen. As per section 2.213 of the general zoning bylaw, this retaining wall is considered a structure and is subject to the regulations set out under section 6.4 of the general zoning bylaw, and a variance will be required for a reduced setback. The owner proposes to enter into an encroachment agreement with the property owners of 45 Sylvan Drive to address the portion of the retaining wall structure that extends over the property line of the subject property. The owner is requesting the following minor variances. Section 6.4.2 establishes that no person shall erect any accessory structure closer than 1 meter from any interior or rear lot line. The owner seeks relief from this provision to permit the existing retaining wall to have a setback of 0 meters off the east property line. And secondly, section 6.10.1 establishes that the building setback shall be the distance equal to the distance between the street line and the closest point of the existing building. The current building line of the subject property is 9.17 meters. The owner seeks relief from this provision to permit a building line of 8.19 meters. The photo in the top left of the screen is the existing elevation of the dwelling from Sylvan Drive, and the photo in the bottom right is the proposed elevation from Sylvan Drive. There have been no correspondence received from any members of the public, and there have been no objections from the Region of Waterloo Catholic District School Board, or the Township Fire Department. Staff recommends that all comments and correspondence received from members of the public and government agencies through the consultation process be returned to staff for a future report to the committee on the disposition of this matter. Staff will be considering matters including all comments and correspondence received and whether the development meets the criteria of the 4 tests. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. So many members of the public that wish to speak on this. Seeing none, councilors, any questions or comments? Seeing none, can I have a motion, please, Councilor Tilley?
Moved by myself, second by Derek Osner, that PD report number 36/2024 A09-24 43 Sullivan Drive, that PD report number 36/24 be received, and that all comments and correspondence received through the consultation process be returned to staff for consideration in a future report to the committee on the disposition of this matter.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. No correspondence. Can I have the adjournment of Committee of Adjustment, please, Councilor Nolan?
For myself and by Council Wilms, that pursuant to Planning Act, public meeting of community adjustment be adjourned at 6:24 p.m.
All those. Carried, thank you. Next, we have public meetings and hearings in council, presentations from BDO LLP Canada.
On Zoom.
Hmm?
She's online.
Oh, she's on, so. Tracy Smith will present via Zoom. Tracy, please.
Hello, can you see me? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so Christina has asked me to try to share my screen, so just bear with me a minute till I see if I can do that. Okay, so I think I am sharing my screen. Is that good?
Yes, we've done. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so I can't see anyone, so I would like to thank the council for inviting me to your meeting this evening. We'd like to thank Christina and her team for their assistance during the audit. As your auditor, we have the responsibility to communicate with those charged with governance on an annual basis. Our report on your screen is also in your agenda package on page 664 in item 13.2.1. Our report contains all the required communications under Canadian auditing standards, and they are very similar year to year as the content is prescribed by those standards and it's required to be communicated on an annual basis. So I'm just going to provide a brief summary of this communication and a high-level overview of the draft financial statements, which are contained in Appendix A. And since I am virtual and since I can't see anyone on the screen anymore, I will answer questions at the end of the presentation. So I'll just move here to the audit at a glance. Page 3 of the report, it summarizes that the financial statements are in draft and they are provided in Appendix A. The financial statements need to be approved by council before they can be released in final. And once they are approved, then we need to get a signed representation letter from management and also do subsequent events up until that approval date. We do confirm that BDO is independent from the township on an annual basis. Materiality was 380,000. That's based on 3% average revenues consistent with public sector accounting standards. On pages 4, 5, and 6, they summarize our current audit process. Last year, there were significant changes in the auditing standards, which affected us as auditors and how we planned and performed the audit. This year, there were significant changes to the accounting standards relating to asset retirement obligations and financial instruments. And these changes have been implemented in your 2023 financial statements. And that has resulted in a restatement of the prior year comparative amounts in accordance with those standards. There's also additional disclosures and in the notes and in the significant and accounting policies, and we'll highlight those as we discuss the financial statements. On page 7 of the report, that notes that we did not find any significant deficiencies in the design and the implementations of internal controls that we tested during the audit. On page 8 is the unadjusted differences, and they are not material. Therefore, BDO can issue a clean opinion with no qualification. So that brings us, that's a very brief highlight of the communication. As I said, it is similar year to year. And then in Appendix A is the draft financial statements, and I'll just go to the auditor's report. The audit, just gonna scroll here. My notes. So our auditor's report in Appendix A is in agenda package on page 705. The preparation of the financial statements, including all the disclosure in the notes, is the responsibility of your management team. Although we can assist in formatting and making suggestions on the wording, all these numbers and disclosures are provided by your management team from the accounting records of the township. BDO as your auditor is required to maintain independence to be able to provide an independent opinion on the financial statements prepared by your management team. There are new stricter independent standards now that require the audited financial statements to be reviewed a second time by an experienced BDO manager from outside of our audit engagement team when we assist with the formatting of these financial statements. So it is the auditor's responsibility not to prepare the financial statements, but to give an independent opinion. And the audit opinion that we give is the highest level of assurance that can be provided by a public accounting firm. The opinion is in the second paragraph there. And in our opinion, the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the township in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards, which means it's a clean opinion and that we had no issues that came to our attention during the audit. In the middle of the page is the responsibilities of management and those charged with governance. It's management's responsibility for the preparation of the financial statements, and it also highlights that those charged with governance are responsible for overseeing the township's financial reporting process. On the next page is the details of the responsibilities of the auditor. So that will bring us to page 4, which is the statement of financial position, or often referred to as the balance sheet. Just going to try to scroll so we get all the numbers in here for you. On December 31st, so it's at a point in time, on December 31st, the total assets were 36.3 million. The largest portion of that is 21.8 million in cash and 11.2 million in long-term investments. The cash did increase from 2022 by 2.6 million. And that increase is a result of putting $1 million into reserve and also from the operating surplus of $1.2 million. The long-term investment is the municipality's investment in Grandbridge and Energy Inc. On December 31st, the total liabilities were $11.9 million. They include the accounts payable and accrued liabilities, and the timing, the amount of that fluctuates depending on the timing of your payments of your capital projects and how big your capital projects are at the year end. The other current liabilities is your developer deposits and refundable occupancy and other permits. The new that you see on the financial statements is that asset retirement obligation. And that was as a result of the new standards and as an estimate of the future costs to retire your certain capital assets. You will note that there is a restatement of the prior year, and that is required as a result of the standards to not only estimate the 2023 amount, but the 2022 amount, and report that in the prior year. The deferred revenue is your unspent OCFA and other grants, and there's details on that on page 28. The obligatory reserve funds, those include the money that you've collected but you haven't yet spent for development charges, the Canadian Building Fund, and in lieu of parkland. So that revenue does not get recorded as revenue until the actual expenses are incurred. And long-term liabilities, you had no new debt during the year, and the that existing debt that you have will be paid off in 2024. So that brings us down to the net financial assets of 24.4. That's the assets less the financial liabilities, and that is a key financial indicator. A positive amount means that you do have resources available for the future, and that increases when you increase your reserves and you have a surplus, and you repay your debt. Tangible capital assets are your physical assets. It should be noted that that's at cost, not replacement cost, less amortization, and totaled 38.7. The accumulated surplus of $63 million. That's both your monetary and your physical assets, and that includes 38.5 million invested in capital assets, net of the external debt. 11.2 million investment in the Grand Bridge Energy, 12.7 million in reserves, and 1.2 million in current operating surplus. And again, you can find those details in note 10. Page 5 brings us to the statement of operations and is the transactions for the year. The revenues include all the external revenues for both operating and capital. The revenues totaled $14 million for 2023. There was an increase in your user fees and your fees and user charges, mostly in the recreation fees. The grants were significant lower, and that depends on what capital projects you have going during the year. The large increase in your other income is this significant part of that is the increase in the interest income, which is also the significant part of why you had an operating surplus during the year. The expenses totaled $10.6 million, and they include your operating expenses and amortization. These expenses do not include your any capital purchases or transfers to reserve. Also note that this budget column does not include amortization, where the actual column does include amortization for the year. That brings you down to the annual surplus of 3.3 million. Again, that's important to note that that's not your operating surplus. The operating surplus focuses on your short term and is the amount that affects your budget and your tax rates. And the operating surplus for the year was 1,232,833. And you can find that in note 12. The annual surplus on this page of 3.3 focuses on the long term, and it's the amount of external revenues raised during the year after paying for all your operating costs and covering amortization. So this annual surplus number, it should always be positive. It should always be a large number because from this number, you need to be able to purchase your capital assets and make your debt payments. So we take that 3.3 million annual surplus from this page, and on the next page, we carry that forward, and then we adjust for the capital assets and the amortization. That brings you down to the increase in net financial assets of 1.9. So these are the funds are the amounts transferred to reserve, your operating surplus, and the amounts used to pay for your long-term debt. The budget amount is negative, as you did anticipate taking money out of reserves for capital projects, but those some of your capital projects didn't proceed, so you didn't need to take as much money out of your reserves. So the last page that I'm just going to highlight is the statement of cash flows and reflects the actual cash flowing in and out of your bank during the year. In the middle of the page, this 6.1 million is the amount that came in from operations and capital grants. You invested $3.3 million in capital assets, repaid debt of $238,000, so you had a net increase in your bank cash of $2.6 million. So overall, the township had an operating surplus for the year of 1.2, a very small amount of external debt, which will be repaid in 2024. You've got positive cash flows with $21.8 million in the bank and reserves of $12.7 million. So that's a very high level overview of the financial statements. I'm going to stop sharing here. And so then I can see everyone again and see if there are any questions that you may have.
Councilors, any questions? Councilor Williams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question to Ms. Smith is, there was quite a jump in our surplus. Is this something that you're seeing across more of the townships and stuff like that, or was this specific to North Dumfries and our interest rates that really contributed significantly to that?
Yeah, so we've been seeing it in most of our municipalities that they do have an operating surplus, and it is largely a result of the fact that most municipalities do hold a significant amount of cash in their bank and investments, and with the increased interest rates, that has been a significant surplus for many municipalities.
Councilors, any other questions? Seeing none. Tracy, thank you very much for taking the time and doing this. And can I have the motion, please, Councilor Austin?
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Chile, that the presentation from Tracy Smith, partner at BDO LLP Canada, with the overview and discussion on the 2023 audited financial statements be received with thanks.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Item number 10.1, Kevin Thomason, Waterloo Climate Collaborative. Kevin, please.
Honorable Mayor, councilors, and guests. My name is Kevin Thomason, and I'm a longtime Waterloo Region resident who has spent too much of the past 30 years trying to protect our environment and improve our local communities. Green, WR, is a grassroots community organization co-founded by myself and other Waterloo Region residents a couple years ago, including Sandra Bray, who's here tonight with us as well. This citizen volunteer group has grown now into a network of highly engaged citizens in 5 different municipalities to promote green development standards across Waterloo Region. We've met with both Mayor Sue Foxton and North Dumfries Township staff, as well as many other area municipalities over the past year to discuss how green development standards can help to lower greenhouse gas emissions, improve the resilience of our communities, and help meet Paris Accord commitments. However, when we applied to present at last month's council meeting to follow up the Climate Action Waterloo Region greenhouse gas inventory presentation to this council, we were denied. It is totally absurd that a community group with the sole focus of reducing greenhouse gas emissions was refused the ability to appear before North Dumfries Council to speak to the Climate Action Waterloo Region report about reducing North Dumfries greenhouse gases. We already have enough climate issues, and the public has trouble trying to understand how a grassroots community group focused on greenhouse gas reduction can't even appear before council to speak to a report on greenhouse gas reduction. And it seems to be, if we can't even speak to something that is on the agenda, and it seems to be the optimal time for us to be addressing council, then how are we going to adequately address these issues? Some of the biggest challenges before our communities. However, according to your procedural bylaws, delegations are only permitted for staff reports. And since Climate Action Waterloo Region and Kira Chisholm aren't North Dumfries staff, despite receiving significant municipal funding, we weren't allowed to register as a delegation to speak to the report to council. However, we are determined, persistent, and at least being able to leverage other sections of your procedural bylaws to enable the delegation tonight, and I hope that you remember the presentation from last month that we would like to address now. As you may remember, back on July 8th, Kira from Climate Action Waterloo Region, am here to inform you of the disappointing news that instead of reducing our greenhouse gas emissions by 50% by 2030, we've actually seen emissions increase in the past year, moving in the complete opposite direction that is needed to avoid planetary disaster in the years ahead. The Transform Waterloo Region report, endorsed by councils across Waterloo Region, including this one, offers a series of statements describing what our region needs to look like by 2050 and how we need dramatic change in key policy areas. For example, by 2050, most trips are taken using active transportation and transit. All other trips are taken using zero-emission vehicles. Homes and businesses no longer use fossil fuels for heating or cooling. We create less and recycle more. We have more sustainable local food. And by 2050, we have significantly reduced greenhouse gas emissions while increasing equity, prosperity, and resiliency for all. While our greenhouse gas emissions are increasing and we're far from reaching needed targets, you may be surprised to learn that Toronto's emissions are falling despite significant population increases, and they're on track to meet future targets. Green Waterloo Region was created by area citizens to help encourage the rapid implementation of the green development and high-performance building standards that Toronto has had in place now for 15 years. Not only has Toronto been building far better buildings than we have been, but they've been encouraging transit use, active transportation, green routes, home retrofits, complete walkable community, tree planting, and many other desirable things that we already know we need to be doing more. Climate change isn't another bucket for public spending. Rather, climate change impacts are the holes in all our other spending buckets, and these expenses are rapidly increasing. We must plug these holes and do things better. Green development standards force better, more resilient homes that are more comfortable and significantly cheaper to run over the decades ahead. Even though they may cost between 3 and 5% more to build now, this is quickly recouped through savings on heating, cooling, and other monthly utility expenses. Waterloo Region has had a high-performance development standard initiative underway for over a decade, with not enough progress at a time we need to be doing more faster. Indeed, as was reported here last month, North Dumfries Township and Waterloo Region are moving backwards with greenhouse gas emissions, not less. With more greenhouse gas emissions, not less. And it isn't just green development standards. There are corporate energy conservation programs, demand management programs, climate adaptation plans, all sorts of programs and actions through Sustainable Waterloo Region, and others that we need to be doing far more with. Are you advocating strong enough with higher levels of government for the tools you need to tackle climate change here in North Dumfries? In particular, our provincial government's actions on climate change and the environment have been dismal, to the dismay of most citizens who are expecting our governments to be doing more to protect our environment and act on climate change. In conclusion, a few minutes here is not nearly long enough to address the biggest challenge facing our planet, our children, and future generations. Once again, this summer, we've watched record floods, record heat, record fires, record storm, and so many other issues devastate communities around the world. We urge you to do more, to take this Climate Action Waterloo report presented to you and do more to make sure that we achieve future targets. Do the policy work, the public relations, the communications, create the advisory committees, raise awareness, budget differently, think more long-term, and consider carbon accounting and budgeting like the City of Waterloo and the City of Edmonton already have implemented. We already know what we have to do successfully to tackle climate change. We already have the needed tools, technology, and processes. We just need to get over the fear of change and act at a far faster rate. Here in North Dumfries Township, the rapid adoption of high-performance development standards would immediately ensure all new homes are built to the best standard, and the benefits that Toronto and other leading communities are already seeing would be enjoyed here too. Please let us at Green Waterloo Region and the Waterloo Region Climate Collaborative know how we can best assist. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Just a comment. When we have delegations come, such as Waterloo Region last month when you wanted to speak.
Yeah.
We don't allow other county delegates to come because we don't want to start a debate.
Yeah.
We don't have conflict group. So that was to protect the people that are delegating, all right? And we will continue to do that. As for what you've said, we have been asking for transit in the township for 12 years and haven't got it. So I don't think you can blame that on North Dumfries.
So we're here
And
to
the other
help on
thing
that.
is, we've done conversion of metal halide at the ACCs to T5 fluorescent lights over the respective ice surfaces and LED illuminants. Funds have been set aside for the 2024 budget process with a matching grant application submitted to install commissions for EV charging stations at the Gibson Street Municipal Parking Lot and the NDCC parking lot for public use. Renovations of the administration, fire prevention areas, and the air fire station incorporating Air Force heat pumps for heating and air conditioning. New Public Works Administration buildings incorporated Air Force heat pumps for heating and air conditioning as principal HVAC systems. At the August 12th council meeting, council considered the finalization of the detailed engineering architectural drawings for the proposed twin pad arena project with the net zero design principle. Acquisitions of fleet vehicles for the fire department, that is a hybrid technology. And in 2023, green initiatives undertaken by the township included conversion of the sports fields lights for the baseball diamonds, 4 in total, from metal halide to LED luminance. Conversion of the tennis court pickleball lights at Victoria Park from metal lights to LED luminance, and incorporate LED luminance into the new tennis courts, pickleball courts at Jim Schmidt Memorial Park. Change out of hand tools and the equipment for the fire department from internal combustion engines to battery powered. This included the complete set of auto extraction tools, generators, saw walls, and impact wrenches. We are doing everything constantly, and I don't appreciate you coming here and trying to tell us we're not. We are spending the taxpayers wisely in a balanced form to bring down our greenhouse gas emissions while still allowing the taxpayer to survive on the incomes they have. And I commend this council and this staff. I'm really proud of all of you for what you've done last year and the years before and in the future years. So we're on target. We're going to be going as much as we can continually. Thank you. Any other comments, councilors? Councilor Tilly.
I do appreciate the reminder, though, we need to continue working towards the right direction, and I do appreciate your time.
And it's fantastic to see all the initiatives the council is doing. The challenge is it's not enough, but our emissions are still increasing. The report that Kira delivered last month showed that we're still going in the wrong direction. And the Green Waterloo's focus is very much on these high performance development standards. The bottom line is, while the township and the municipality might be doing a lot for municipal services, our houses are still being built to yesterday's standards. We've got a province determined to build 1.5 million homes over the coming years that are not being built to net zero. They're not being built with heat pumps. They're not being built to the standards that we need. That's where these high performance development standards come in. That's where other municipalities like Toronto have said, if you're going to be building our community, you need to meet these high standards. And not just Toronto, it's Ajax, Vaughan, Mississauga, even smaller communities such as Halton Hill or King Township have all said to their developers and builders and that if you want a permit from our municipality, this is the threshold you need to meet. And that's the opportunity we have before us with these high performance development standards. And everyone benefits. Our municipality benefits, our citizens benefit. We get a higher quality, more resilient home that actually costs them less to operate each month. And ultimately, it's a better, more resilient building over time. So huge opportunity before us. You're already doing many amazing things. We just need to keep moving it and doing even more, as unfortunately Kira's numbers showed last month.
Thank you. And also Councilwoman.
The question I have through you to the delegate is, this is a rural township. So, and we have a farmer in the audience. I see Jeff's over there in the back. What's your position on greenhouse gas emissions and methane from cattle?
Yeah.
Because that is one of the biggest contributing factors in this township, I would think.
Yeah.
And a lot of rural townships.
Yeah.
So we can tell the farmers, like they're trying to do in Europe, get rid of your cattle, get rid of manure, and stop having greenhouse gas, because that's not really a viable solution.
Yeah, exactly. And you'll notice most of the names that I've cited, Vaughan, Mississauga, Markham, Toronto, are urban cities. And when Green Waterloo Region originally started almost 2 years ago now, we saw an opportunity actually, because here in Waterloo Region, that high performance building standard development, the Waterloo Community Renewable Energy Initiative with Matthew Day, was originally only done with our 3 urban cities, our gas utilities, and our hydro companies. And the 4 rural townships were left out of it. So when we started Green Waterloo Region, we actually thought perhaps we have an opportunity here to take our 4 rural townships that have been left behind and actually jump ahead, vault over the cities, because in 10 years, they hadn't had very much to show for their effort. And one of the things we saw a huge opportunity for was what I'll call rural green development standards. And that is, how can we take into account farmers? Because while farms and a lot of rural properties are actually some of the largest users or producers of some of these greenhouse gases or energy, they're also some of the opportunities for the biggest savings. And there's actually some farmers in Waterloo Region doing some really creative things that we think we can highlight, and we're excited to think that these high performance development standards we can create here in Waterloo Region can actually encompass the rural communities and start to set the standards. And that's why we've been paying a lot of attention to King City and Halton Hills, other rural communities that have had green development standards in for a few years. But perfect opportunity, and where Green Waterloo Region really hopes we can continue to work, not only with our 4 rural townships, but also our urban cities, and get us to where we need to be in years ahead.
And before I turn to Councilor Rowland, before, we do have a section of a subdivision that was done in green.
Yes. Yeah.
Councilor Rowland.
All I was gonna add, Madam Mayor, was, we don't really want a city solution being pulled down this rural area, so, you know, we're
Exactly.
constantly being forgotten. And I don't really appreciate Water Region Planning Club coming in and telling us we're not doing enough when we're not taking into consideration the rural townships.
And we've been working very hard to ensure the rural townships actually have a voice at those meetings. And so, for example, back in June, when the open houses were held across the region, we tried to make sure citizens were out there. We worked hard even within the community here to promote those open houses, to make sure that people were going to try to guide these things in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have the motion, please, Councilor Williams?
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Rowland, that the delegation from Kevin Thomason of the Water Climate Collaborative be received with thanks.
All those in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
Request to lift any items from the consent agenda? Councilor Williams.
At 12.2.1, see the letter from MVP 5.
Okay. So how do we want to do this? In this first up now on the motion? Okay, thank you. Councilor Tiller, you will have that on your motion. We will pass that up, please. It's 12.2.1, item C. Okay, can I have the motion then? And then we will discuss it. Councilor Tiller, yes?
In addition, could I as well, for B, email from Enbridge, regarding the, Ontario Energy Board application?
Yes, so we scratch both of those. Okay. Now the motion, please.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Ossner, that the following reports as listed on August 2024 consent agenda be received, and the recommendations contained therein be approved and acted upon. FD 09-2024, July 24 incident response summary. FIN 16-2024 report Waterloo Region Community Foundation Grant Award, and that the following information items as listed on the August 12th consent agenda be received. 12.2.1 communications correspondence. A, email from Watson and Associates Economics Limited, development charges regulation changes. D, REAP Green Solutions events added as an addendum. And 12.22.3 external public agencies. A, Waterloo Region of Waterloo Council meeting minutes, May 22nd, 2024. B, Region of Waterloo Library meeting minutes, June 4th, 2024. And C, GRCA meeting minutes, May 2024.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. We will do them in the order that they come on the motion. So we will start with B, the email from Enbridge Gas. That was carried, by the way. So Councilor Tiller.
Through you, Mayor, to staff, I would like to I mean, that's a big, long bunch of information that I tried to process and understand. Is there a real Coles Notes version of understanding exactly what is happening and what's going to be happening because of this application? Thank you.
CEO McNeely.
Madam Mayor, through to Councilor Tilley, Coles Notes. Enbridge is the franchisee for this area. And they have applied to the Ontario Energy Board for an increase in their rate structure effective January 1, 2025. So as the basis for their increase and what they're seeking on a per cubic meter basis to buy gas, whether it be for residential, industrial, commercial uses, they have to provide a context or justification that outlines the basis for their ask in the request. There are two drivers, which are in the myriad of documents that form part of their submission to the Ontario Energy Board. One is their changes as required to adapt and respond to changing regulatory environment, testing, monitoring, and their methods to try and reduce greenhouse gases. The other is all the absorption of union gas. So we were in a union gas area, and so there is an adjustment as part of the uniformity that they're seeking between former Enbridge gas providers, former union gas into one harmonized rate. Essentially, that is what they're seeking. So when you look at the residential rate, they wish to provide a one-time credit, $5.12, effective January 1. However, because we are in the union gas area, that is quickly being clawed back. And you will see rates in terms of a one-time charge of $9.51. You will see a one-time billing charge in addition for $1.60, and two smaller increases of 13 cents and 47 cents. Those are one-time cost recoveries as a part of their absorption of the former Union Gas Service District. After that, their normal increases are what was approved last year by the OEB and were previously published.
Sufficient?
Perfect, thank you.
Do we want a motion? Okay, go ahead. And while you're working on it, I can ask Alita to carry on with please. Go ahead, Alita.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I would just like to first state my support for MPP's Fife's concern about what's the expropriation efforts that are going on in Wilmot. We just heard from Kevin Thomason about the need for local sustainable foods. And we are currently expropriating some of the most richest, the best farmland in Waterloo region for industrial purposes, which is, I think, a huge concern and should be a concern for everyone. My question also has to deal, and what piqued my interest as well with MPP 5's motion was about extending the green belt into Waterloo region. And my question through you, Mayor, to staff is, what would that mean? I understand she was specifically focusing on a portion of Waterloo region, specifically the Waterloo Marine Protected Area, and there's some of North Dumfries in there, but not all of it. And so I was just wondering what would that mean if that were to go through for North Dumfries? Thank you.
I want to jump all over this because we fought against it so badly. But CEO McNeely will take care of it.
Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Wilms. Approximately 4 years ago, the former Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Honourable Steve Clark, put out a discussion paper that would have looked at extending the green belt into a portion of Waterloo region. And specifically, it would have affected a significant portion of Ward 4. And it was an extension of what was referred to as the Gulf Paris Moraine. And so that actually goes into Wellington County, into the Erin area of Wellington, through to basically just north of Paris within Brant County. We made a deposition in partnership with the region because the paper only looked at the Gulf Paris Moraine. Principles are the same. MPP Fife is very, very concerned about the integrity of the groundwater resources and their long-term sustainability, whether it be for production for potable water, whether it be on individual well basis or municipal water supply system. And in Waterloo Region, we are heavily reliant. We are probably one of the largest urban centers in Canada that takes almost exclusively all of its water from groundwater sources. What we have found is the region actually has one of the most proactive water resource programs in North America. There are significant modeling and data centers that constantly look at the aquifer and the changes that occur either based on use of water and or precipitation events and how these balance the integrity and sustainability of the aquifer. That's then been carried forward in terms of policies largely contained in the regional official plan to ensure the long-term protection of those aquifer resources because we are so dependent on groundwater resources, both for our communities as we know them today and as we grow toward 1 million people in the decades to come. And what we found is if they had actually moved forward with the Greenbelt Plan and the policies contained in the Greenbelt Plan, it was actually going to be a step backwards for Waterloo Region because it would have been looser, more relaxed policies as it relates to groundwater resources. Ours were tailored based on the unique understanding of the geomorphology and the aquifers in Waterloo Region. Whereas the Greenbelt Plan just takes generic water resources policies that are applicable to a significant area in and around the Greater Toronto Hamilton area. So that broad sweep was not as detailed in its policy structure as we know based on the work that's been done over multiple decades here in Waterloo Region. And so we actually made presentations to Minister Clark on it. And the minister saw the wisdom of not including Waterloo Region for what his original intent was, which was protection of water resources. He concurred with the policies in Waterloo and specifically enshrined in the regional official plan were far more comprehensive and did a lot more in terms of protection of groundwater resources than what he could have achieved through the Greenbelt Plan. What we did say to the minister was, if in your wisdom, you believe it's appropriate to bring all or portions of those lands into the Greenbelt Plan, then we wanted a chapter in the Greenbelt Plan that was specific to Waterloo Region and effectively split the policies in the regional official plan and put them as a subchapter in the Greenbelt Plan because of the integrity and the strength of the Waterloo Region Plan. As it turned out, the minister did not do that. He did not touch lands within Waterloo Region and specifically North Dumfries. The minister did add to the Greenbelt Plan certain lands in and around the community of Erin, and they were incorporated. Gulf Paris Moraine in and around Erin were included within the expanded Greenbelt Plan boundaries.
So also in the letter was concerned about the constant expansion into the countryside and trying to really respect those boundaries that we have. Is that something where the Greenbelt Plan, the Greenbelt would also kind of make sure that we do protect our rural areas more, or is development, does it curb some of this development, like an urban sprawl? That's my question.
Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Wilms. The other part that's unique to Waterloo and specifically Waterloo Region is the protected countryside line and the protected countryside area, which is an overlay designation. It's significant. I look at Waterloo Region as it relates specifically to North Dumfries. There are significant portions of our rural landscape that are within the protected countryside area designation. And that designation does not allow for future urban use within those areas. There are mechanisms in the Greenbelt Plan to allow for adjustments to the urban boundary. And it's basically done as part of a major update to an official plan looking out that 20 or 30 years in horizon. And there's a justification process as to why you need to expand those urban areas. And it's typically based on employment and or residential modeling and why you can't accommodate more within the existing built boundary through intensification or a conversion of some functionally obsolete buildings or properties. The region official plan as crafted does not allow change to the countryside protected area designation. So one is definitive, one has an amendment process. The other is, as it relates to the 770 acres that are quoted in Wilmot. When the region created ROPA 6, they put a line or two into the new official plan that exempted the region to be able to look at creating a mega site, but there was no criterion as to how they would have determined the appropriateness of a mega site and on what terms or bases so that would be assessed. Whereas by contrast, the Greenbelt plan, as I mentioned a moment ago, if you were to expand an urban boundary, you had to provide criterion and justification for it. And there was no criterion put in place in ROPA 6 as it related to the mega site. So there was a mechanism to entertain a discussion on a mega site. But there was no criterion on which to assess that. And I think, not trying to put words in PP Fife's mouth, I believe that's what her main criticism is. This just appeared. On what basis? Why this parcel? Weren't there other candidate sites that could be perhaps more appropriate? That wouldn't necessarily take away some of this prime agricultural land that's being advanced in and around Wilmot.
Thank you very much. I think this is probably something we want to keep in mind when we start making our own official plan, that we really look at protecting things and making sure that that we balance our development appropriately.
I think we all totally agree with that, and we love our boundaries, we do, and I think we want to preserve that and still have a balance of growth. So that's Councilor's job. So if we're okay with the motions, and Councilor Tilly, please.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Williams, that the email from Enbridge Gas, Ontario Elect Energy Board, a notice of application be received for information.
All those in favor? Carrie, thank you. Thank you. Councilor Williams, please.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Tilly, that the letter from MVP Catherine Fife, rebuilt motion be received for information.
All those in favor? Carrie, thank you. We are on reports, bin report, audited financial statement, is somebody presenting?
No, Madam Mayor, this is a summary report because we need to speak to the financial impact statement because there are certain statutory things the council needs to do that flowed out of the presentation and the submission of the draft financial statement as spoken to by Ms. Smith.
Okay, Councilor Norman, please.
Moved by myself and by Councilor Williams, that the report FIN 14-2024, the 2023 audited financial statements, that report number 14-2024 be received, and the council approve the 2023 audited financial statements with Township North Dumfries presented as attachment number 1 to the report, and that council authorize that 2023 audited financial statements be finalized and published.
All those in favor? Carrie, thank you. Councilor Osner, please, the next one.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Tilly. Ben report 15-2024, the 2023 reserve allocations. That report FIN 15-2024 be received, and the council approve the following transfers to reserves for 24. from the 23 year-end surplus in the amount of $1,232,833 as follows. Allocation of $350,000 to infrastructure reserve. Allocation of $435,500 to facility reserve. $75,000 to pay equity and payroll reserve. $70,000 to winter nature storm reserve. $100,000 to land reserve. And $202,333 for the working reserve.
Council Williams, question, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just have a question because when I first saw the amount of the surplus, I was rather concerned because it looks kind of, we tax people 7.3 million and we had a surplus of 1.2 million. So I understand that most of it is the result of just the investment income was so much higher than it originally budgeted. And so my question is, through you, Madam Mayor, to the treasurer is, was there any way that we could have better forecasted this increase and not tax people so much? Thank you.
Go ahead.
Madam Mayor, through you to Councillor Wilms. The best way to look at this is a one-time bonus. No one predicted that the interest rates would go up that many times in that short a period, and they're already starting to be cut this year very quickly as well. Some banks are predicting another 3 rate cuts this year. Some are saying, no, it's going to be less. So unfortunately, I can't control what the Bank of Canada does with rates, and our rate with the bank is tied into a percentage tied to prime, which is tied to the Bank of Canada rates. So we have in the 2024 budget increased our amount of interest income in order to account for the fact that we were anticipating a higher amount again this year. The other danger, though, is in the years that it goes down, you all of a sudden have to do a double-digit tax increase to make those funds up. So it's a balance between understanding that I don't want to overtax people. At the same time, it is hard to predict the exact number.
CEO McNeely.
Madam Mayor, through Councillor Williams, the other contributing factor beyond rapid increase in the interest rates and favorable position that created to the township based on cash at hand was there was also more money in our bank than we had forecasted. Because you may recall, we came to council with a series of tenders that the pricing that we received in the marketplace was just outlandish based on the value of what the work was estimated to be. And we chose not to let those contracts. That money stayed in our accounts. Well, because, and we're talking, several $1 million cumulative, that money stayed in our accounts. It then benefited from the higher interest rates and contributed to some of that extra money that drove the surplus. So it's a symptom of a couple of factors. But I just want to stress and reiterate something that the treasurer just flagged for you. Every year we try and estimate how much money we're going to generate from interest on our cash accounts or our investment accounts. We do some external investments on some of our long-term proceeds. And it is an exact science. But we also, it becomes a base number in your budget. And so if you put an artificially high number, because interest rates today are at that level, and tomorrow, the next calendar year, 2% is taken off of the prime, which is not out of possibilities if we look at fiscal year 25, based on some early signals from the Bank of Canada. You have to make up the difference between what you are plugging in as your interest rate and what the new interest would be based on a lower interest rate, as well as the draws that we're making. So our cash on hand, if you take a look at your 10-year capital forecast on the reserve continuity statements, our cash on hand as we go through the decade will start dropping significantly because we've got a fairly aggressive and encompassing build program over the next 10 years. So it's going to be a symptom of having lower interest rates which is the early trend, and less cash on hand. And so you will actually watch our number that we're carrying in our operating budget for interest earned to drop. It's not going to be a significant amount, but it will be dropping as we move into the decade. We have to make up that base gap between what we've historically plugged into our operating model and what our new number will be. Because the township has utilized in some of our programs or services, the use of the revenue from interest earned.
So no other questions, we'll move on to,
So was there a vote on that motion?
oh,
No.
all those in favor? Carrie, thank you. Next, we have bylaw report 11/2024 fence bylaw exemption 152 Mitchell Street. Is someone presenting? No. Is there discussion? Okay, Paul and Cheryl, you've registered to speak. Would you like to come forward, please?
Gerald Beats. Mayor Fox and Mr. McNeely, councilors and staff. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I would like to remind you that this conflict started with their fence being built not to by law enforcement and requirements last summer. I'd like to respond to the owners of 152 Mitchell Street's justification in making this request. We spend a large portion of our day during spring and summer in our backyard. We have an outdoor kitchen, a pool, a cabana, and that was there when they purchased the home. There should have been an expectation of noise. We do not stare at their windows. Typically, our backs are to their windows out back as we are facing our cabana and the TV we have inside. We do not yell at them while they're in their front yard. We don't talk to them. We do not stare at them when they come and go from their product. Yes, one time my wife did point to her eyes, "I see you." That was in response to Ms. Ireland banging on her front window from outside her house, from inside her house at my wife when she was on our lawn. Ms. Ireland has also done this to our grandchildren and myself. And it was not her daughter, if it would be claimed that way, because when it happened to me, her daughter was playing in the backyard on a trampoline. We do not throw things in their yard. We did have Waterloo Regional Police come to our house due to Miss Ireland's complaining about the wind chimes and our front porch lights. The officer had no issue with the lights, which he verified was pointing down at our sidewalk and our front porch. My wife did take a picture of them staring into our backyard from a play center that they moved along their property line as evidence of invasion of our privacy. See that picture here. Should she have taken the picture? Probably not, but she wanted to prepare herself in case something like this happened. Waterloo Regional Police have never come to us with a yelling and cursing complaint. Yes, the temporary wooden stake was knocked out when I cut the grass, and I placed it on an electrical utility box next to where it was. Ms. Ireland replaced it and it remains there. However, this stake is not required as there is a permanent iron bar survey stake in the ground which marks the property boundary, which you can see here. We do not harass these people. We are living our daily lives and are the ones that are being consistently harassed by the banging on the front windows, and the police have spoken to them about this. Continued calls to the township and Waterloo Regional Police, and again, not a single complaint was battled. Not one. As for the notice diary, one day in particular stood out to me. June 15th. It states that there was bass and yelling from 8:30 a.m. to 11:03 p.m. This is a fabrication. As June 15th is the date of the Air Slow Pitch Super Saturday. We played baseball at 10:15 a.m., at 4:30 p.m., and in between games and after the second game, we're at my brother-in-law's on Miss River Way into the evening, as it was also his birthday.
As we know, this entry is fabricated. How many others are? For whatever reason, Mr. Kirby and Miss Ireland had decided not to be good neighbors with us. An 8-foot fence is not going to block the second story of their house. So it will have no bearing on the noise that they're complaining about. What's next? Do they come back to council and ask for a 12-foot, 16-foot, 20-foot fence? I want to draw your attention to a picture from their previous residence on Inglis. There's a fence that is 7 feet high. And on top of that, there's lattice that is 5'8". There is not a deck on the top. It was put up for privacy reasons, I assume. They already have sheds that are much higher than 8 feet along the fence. They would make a better investment if they replaced their 30-plus-year-old builder grade original windows for sound insulation and roofing. We personally do not think this is truly a noise issue. We feel it is a privacy issue that they have. If it was truly a noise sensitive issue that Miss Ireland has, why would they run a generator for 3 straight afternoon and evenings next to the fence, which was turned off as soon as we closed up our cabana and went in the house? At 9:15, at 10:15, and 11:03. Surely this would have caused much more distress than the gentle sound of wind chimes and our TV stereo. She also rides a motorcycle that I believe is louder than the decibel allowed, and we can clearly hear it in our house. We cannot hear our TV and stereo, nor our wind chimes within our house. As I stated in my previous correspondence regarding this matter, the existing fence has never complied to township bylaw. They changed the grading, cut the boards to 6'4" to circumvent the situation, so it appears compliant from their side. It is not from the original grading on our side. To allow them to build an 8-foot fence out past the residence to even with the front of our garage will cut off our view of the street, be an eyesore to the neighborhood, potentially lower our property value. We also have the support of the adjacent neighbors in our opposition to this request. Mr. Kirby and Ms. Ireland have planted white cedar hedge along the front that will grow between our property and theirs so that it will get the privacy that they desperately seem to need. The township has a fence bylaw in place. Rules are rules, and we ask that they be honored. Any new fence should be 6 feet to the front of the house and 2 feet 5 inches out front. The existing fence of almost 7 feet is cohesive to the height of the fence on the other side of our property that was built prior to there being fence bylaws in error, which they initially measured to. They did not speak to us about it. They didn't talk to us about their fence and how they wanted to build it. They went and measured it and knocked on the door of our neighbors on the other side. We have no obligation to it remaining at this height. I thank you for your time. Any questions?
Thank you, Paul. Councilor Austin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Mr. Hanley. How long you lived at that residence?
27 years.
You ever had any other issues
No.
prior to this?
No, we've had the pool for 17 years.
Okay. I don't have any more questions, but I do have a few comments whenever I can carry on with that.
Go ahead. Councilor Austin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, I attended the property on, Friday approximately 1 o'clock. Due to the email that was sent by, Paul, Cheryl. And so I visited the property, I looked at all the different, issues and possible issues that were brought up. So the one thing is, I understand bylaw was out looking at their fence. Problem is, what I understand is on the 152, their 152, their address, on the 152 sign, they had created a garden along the fence and raised the level on their side of the backyard. And from that level, it appears to be 6'4". When you look at where those posts are cemented from 158, which is Mr. Hanley says, you can look and you can see where they're cemented into the ground. And if you go up, we're at what, 7 feet?
Just below 7 feet.
About 7 feet. So I don't know why, if that was an issue, why bylaw would not be looking at where they're cemented into the ground, not the false garden on the other side. That's question number one. Question number two is, when I was there, they have moved a play structure, as Paul had shown, and a shed against the fence. I don't know how far it's from the fence, but I assumed we had a bylaw that your structure had to be so far from the fence. To me, they look like they're adjacent, but they may not be, but. So that was question number two, whether those structures are right against it. When it comes to the hedge that they planted in the front, the net result of this hedge, if it's allowed to grow, will be the net result of what they want, as you mentioned, privacy. So we have a fence bylaw for the front of properties at 2.5 feet, 2.5 feet, something like that. My question is that hedge only going to be allowed to grow to 2.5, or is that exempt? Is that hedge going to become a 6-foot fence? Because it will grow. Question number three. As for the noise issues, when I showed up at the Hanley residence, I had to basically walk within 15 feet to hear that TV in the cabana. You know, neighbors need to live with each other. You can't cause stress. I can see the stress. I can see the stress. Talking about the situation. No, I'm sure you've got better things to do than come here tonight. And present to us, please help. So. Whatever the issue is, if I have an issue with noise, then I need to rectify my situation unless it's ridiculous amount of noise. From what I can see, there's not a ridiculous amount of noise. So. That might be a police issue. I know we can't do anything very much about the noise unless it's against our bylaws. So. It's a shame to see this happening. However, it is what it is, and we need to do whatever we can do to appease the peace. So when it comes to the fence issue, the play structure and the shed issue, and the hedge issue, I was just asking those three questions.
So I'll try and answer them in the order in which they were posed. The bylaw as defined does not speak to average grade, it just speaks to grade. So average grade would be either side of the fence. Grade is where you measure from. The accessory buildings, whether it be the climbing apparatus or the shed, there's minimum requirement for detached accessory structures. Have to be a minimum of 1 meter offset from an interior or rear lot line. Bylaw has not identified them as being a matter of issue. They've been out to the property several times. And there's nothing in the field notes that speak to a violation of one or more of those ancillary structures. As it relates to the front yard, or in fact, any yard, we do not have anything in any of our bylaws that would regulate the height or size of shrubbery, hedges, trees. There are civil matters where obviously the size of a tree, if I think of a canopy of a deciduous tree that causes harm on an adjacent property, there are civil aspects that can remedy one or more of those potential impacts. We do not have anything in our bylaw that regulates flora or fauna, except by its composition. There are certain plant species we do not allow as of right. And we don't allow it within our own boulevard. Because obviously that's township property and not part of the private landholder.
Councillor Rushton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So as far as the hedge goes, that's technically a bylaw loophole. Because I can create any kind of, I could take cedars and plant them 8 inches apart and make a solid wall of cedar hedges and let them grow as high as I care. I mean, that's a little different between, you know, hibiscus or a rose of Sharon or a spirea or something like that. That's gonna grow on a nice little ornamental bulb. This is a deliberate fence. A cedar hedge is a deliberate fence, only it's not a man-made fence, it's a natural fence, but either way, it's a fence. So I'm thinking that we may want to look at stuff like that in our bylaw, because either way, it's fence. Doesn't matter what's made out of, it will be a fence if it's left to grow. Getting back to that rear fence. Still have a hard time believing that if you have a fence, this fence is completely on their property, then there's a little gap, and then there's Mr. Hanley's fence. I have a hard time believing that bylaw would simply go into the backyard and see a man-made garden and a 6'4" fence up from that, instead of going on the outside of the fence, still on 152's property, and see where that fence starts. By the time, if this gets approved, by the time that fence gets done, it's gonna be a 9-foot fence. And it's not going to stop. Sound like the type of sound that they're talking about, which, you know, that there's nothing. An 8-foot fence, a 6.5-foot fence, or a 9-foot fence is not going to change that.
Madam Mayor, on the query about noise from stereo system or TV in or adjacent the cabana at the adjacent property, bylaw has been called out several times on noise related complaints. Each time, and as Mr. Hanley's indicated, there was no violation identified by bylaw. Yes, a TV was on, yes, a stereo system was on, and yes, there was sound coming from one or either of the appliances. But it was deemed to be reasonable by its volume, given the hour of the day, and whether or not it was deemed to be a nuisance. Our noise bylaw does speak to expectations related to noise. And so one of the tests that you would do, the hour of the day, because noise at 2 o'clock in the afternoon can be very different in terms of how it's received versus 2 o'clock in the morning. But bylaw was able to carry on a conversation at a reasonable spatial separation between two people, did not have to raise their voice. At no point did the audible sound from any one of those appliances interfere with the ability to carry on a normal conversation at a normal voice level. And so based on that, it was deemed to be an acceptable amount of noise, and did not rise to the threshold of offending one or more of the provisions of the noise bylaw.
So if I may, this is a unique situation, and I'm not saying yea or nay for either. But there is a medical condition. And this medical condition, the doctor's note was included in the report. That she gets migraines from these things. I don't know why. Now, the fence is not a normal fence to put up. If I understand right, it's a board plus insulation type material and another board to block sound. Okay, so, and I don't know whether the height thing is making a difference, whether you do 6 or 8 feet. I don't know where the chimes are and how the sound travels, I don't know any of that. So this is a hard situation, because I understand exactly what the Hamleys are saying, and I understand what, Ms. Ireland is saying. And, it's the hedges that and the report states that not to allow it in the front yard. I believe that's part of the recommendation, it is not to go above the 2.5 in the front yard. But, I think there's more than just one side, I don't know how we do this, yeah, Councilor Austin.
Yeah, 2.5, but as C.L. McNeely said, we have nothing that prevents bushes and trees from growing as tall as you want them. Paul, you have those videos?
Yes.
Okay. So, I saw all the written correspondence, legal correspondence, all that stuff about noise and how sensitive Miss Ireland is to the noise. Do you have any reason to believe what the generators were running for? Like, were they? Can you see if
We believe they were just put onto an ice. We
So,
chose not to call bylaw, we chose not to raise it to another level, we chose to ignore it, figuring they would get tired of doing it and stop it.
so I listened to these videos, and on Mr. Hanley's side of the fence, it was quite loud. You could barely hear him talking. Somebody who's sensitive to noise would go ballistic with that running all day long.
Wonder if there's just certain types of triggers, I don't know how you want to do
Like
this,
both
one.
TVs.
Councilor Tilly.
I'm sorry, maybe I just don't understand. Is there not a benefit by adding this fence? Would that not just add like bigger fences, make better neighbors? Would that not help the situation and soundproof to allow this to happen? I know that this might be going against what you're saying, but if this fence was to happen, this would create a barrier between you and your neighbor. And I see that as an improvement based on your.
There already is,
and-
Ireland allows a fence, and we're fine with the height of it.
So I understand that, but would it not benefit you to not have to deal with them any further? Is my question.
Well, I don't wanna deal with it now. And I don't know, so I can show you another picture.
So what I'm saying is a bigger fence that, other than just going against their wishes, which kind of seems the motivation, and I hate to say it. But if you were to give this to them, wouldn't they just go away a little further?
So all of these buildings that are above. So what difference is that going to make?
They're farther away.
So what reasons? So, if they went another 2 feet, it wouldn't be a problem.
The back? I'm not as
So
concerned,
the front,
absolutely not
report
the front.
says no.
And I do not want to see an 8-foot fence. From where their existing fence is now up to the front of their property,
And I think. the
because that
report says
wall
it won't
is
happen.
very narrow.
The report is saying not in flood, correct, see what I'm feeling? All right, we do have the option, we can take that, but you okay with the back?
I'm okay with the back where the existing fence is now, not
Exactly.
adding to that fence. Because they wanna take it, they wanna take it more forward to the front.
No, okay, then that's of the options council will have to decide on, okay, but you're okay if they went 2 feet at the side and back?
I'm okay for it being 8 feet to where the existing fence is now.
Okay, all right.
With the understanding this is going to be a sound barrier fence, not just a fence that creates.
That's right, it has to be.
It has to be a sound barrier
That's
fence.
exactly right, thank you, I want that for clarification.
We're not unreasonable people.
No, I don't, Councilor, Austin.
My question is, are they just simply gonna put another foot of lattice on top?
So Madam Mayor, maybe I can assist Councillor Foster on that. So one's a point of clarification. The applicant, being the homeowners, at 152 Mitchell, have asked for a 8-foot high, 2.44 meter fence going from their rear lot line along these property line to within, well, effectively the edge of the municipal boulevard. Okay? The staff recommendation is not to allow the fence at that height to go beyond the front elevation of the habitable portion of the residence at 152 Mitchell. Okay, so we did not support a fence of that height in the front yard. If the way the resolution is crafted, it talks about the variance being to allow 2.44 meter, brackets 8 foot, high acoustical sound / privacy fence. So it actually talks about the nature of the fence as well. Okay. Now, if council's concerned about how does one measure the fence, depending upon what side of the property line you are, then council may wish to say something to the effect that 2.44 meter, 8 foot high acoustical fence and brackets measured from the average grade, which is on them both sides of the fence, which then limits the influencing of artificially raising grade on one side of the property, because now you would be looking at both elevations and measuring from grade to determine the 8 foot restriction.
See, or Mary, the motion does not mention acoustic.
Well, I'm reading the report that I signed off on, and it says high 2.44 meter high acoustical sound / privacy fence. It's in the staff report. It's in the staff report. Because there was a certain type of fence that was being proposed. And the presentation was to deal with noise and the ability to attenuate noise. These acoustical fences, as described, generally, we see these next to commercial parking lots that flank or back onto residential lots. They don't stop noise, but they do absorb some of that noise. And if I'm looking at a parking lot, sometimes conversations at parked vehicles and or the slamming of car doors, it softens or deadens that type of sound. But if you take the staff report, going to Councillor Ostner's earlier concern about how do you measure height and how do you protect artificially of height beyond that 8 feet, you could make the reference to measured as average grade, which would be then on both sides of the fence.
Another, Councillor Roman, you got a comment, did you not? Go ahead, Councillor Roman.
Mayor, I just wanted to agree with Councillor Tilly. I guess the question I have is for staff is this is the third fence bylaw exemption we had dealt with in 3 meetings. So and this is fairly new bylaw. So my question to staff is, did we make a mistake with this bylaw? Look at Kitchener has an 8 foot fence, Cambridge has a 7 foot fence, 6 feet, obviously the public is telling us is too low. So I would encourage staff to go back and look at this bylaw. Maybe we need to rewrite part of this bylaw. Because I think personally, as Councillor Tilly said, if the fence is 8 feet high and no one objects to it, that solves all the problems. I know lots of other neighbors in this town who wanted 8 foot fences, put in the new 6 foot fences, are not happy about it, are trying to do things like Councillor Oster was talking about, raising the grade, making the fence higher, doing all these crazy things. But in reality, I think our bylaw is flawed. So I think staff need to go back and repair this bylaw, make it more effective, and then we don't have to deal with this every single council.
Maybe that's another issue, but getting back to this issue. Ms. Iron, what? I personally would not want a flat wall fence. So it's not going to be that wall. What would it be? Would it be like a wood stain on one side, like it is now, existing?
So the existing fence is staying, and so it's boards touching, then there's a sound deadening in between the boards, and then there'd be another set of boards along.
Okay, so it's staying like it is right now.
Yes, it would
Okay.
look identical. It would really, you wouldn't be able to tell a difference, because it would just be a sound deadening in between 2 fence boards.
Paul, are you okay with that? If it's an 8 foot fence in the back part, does
On
not
the
go
back
the
part.
front.
What I object to is it encroaching any further up the front.
Yes.
Because the property is very narrow between the houses. And then I would be dealing with a wall. And I already have a 6-foot fence there for privacy that I put up.
And we have to get the motion changed to say acoustic. Which you're going to do, right, Cynthia? So can you do the motion change, please? Council, while we're doing that, the person that is reading the motion will make the recommendation. Which means Council Williams. And let's wait for the motion. Go ahead, Council.
I do have a question clarification. So Mr. Hanley is saying the existing fence, but nothing in these current options talk about just the existing fence. Like, what kind of thing?
Granting a partial variance to fence bylaw to allow 2.44 meter high privacy fence, acoustically privacy fence, extending from the rear lot line to the east property line up to the front wall of the portion. So that means the house can't go past the front.
Yeah, right now it goes partway to their house. It doesn't go all the way to the front of the house. I've extended a fence there that's 6 feet high. With a fabric on for privacy. And their shrubs that they planted go right from their existing fence and gate, right to the front of the municipal lot.
Okay, we're saying that we only want to go to the front wall. Is that okay, Paul? If we going to the front wall?
I object to it going to the front of the house, because that will make.
No, not to the front wall. To the, so.
The front, that's the front of the house they're talking about.
and the-
They want to go past that, and I object to that going. I am okay with the 8-foot fence on where the existing fence is today. Which comes past the back of their house, but does not go to the front of their house. Because that is a long, narrow area, and there is already a fence, and there's already shrubs there.
We need to get the corner of our house, we have a long window, like a big window there. Where we get a lot of base and shine flashing through into that front lane. So we need that fence on the corner of our lane, minimum. To keep the peace, if there was a measurement in the front that we could get that was higher than 2 feet even. A lot of the confrontation happens as we're trying to enter and exit our home.
There's never a confrontation when they enter. Never.
Okay.
So,
Well, it's not.
so as far as there's an agreement to run it to the end of the building, the same place where it is right now, just replacing it without changing it. That's what bylaw and our opinion is you don't build anything bigger than that on the front property. So at that point, seems like there's a sign going.
No, it's fine. Go ahead, see all the.
So Madam Mayor, I just want to clarify. Staff report, take the fence to the front corner of the habitable portion of the residence. That is not the location of the current fence. It falls short of that front corner.
Oh, okay.
Our fence would essentially be going in front of the one that Mr. Hand. The wrought iron with the fabric, or is it just go in front, these little. Blocks and coming in. Our front coming on, right up. With
But
the
it-
front floor.
And I see that. Okay.
Yeah. we're going to- then you can amend the condition. And when you present it, we will vote. So number 3 is that if there's a long wall in front to the into the house, front end. Doesn't go in the front part of the home. And it's not to go to the front end. Any more discussion, everybody? Councilor Ross.
I want perfect clarification of where this fence is ending. Because, my thought process was from the back of the house extending down, adjoining both backyards. That's what my understanding. Not carrying it. Because the front of the house.
No.
If they go to the front of their house, I'm just looking on a Google map straight down, they go to the front of the house, that's essentially right at the corner of the Henry's house.
Well, you've got a fence there already, right?
I put in a 6-foot wrought iron fence with the fabric on it. There's also the shrubbery that we planted is there from the existing fence right through the front.
So if I could assist council, as of right now, an individual could put a 6-foot high fence, whether it's wrought iron or board on board or a privacy fence, to the front corner of the habitable portion of the principal dwelling. That's allowed as of right today.
That's correct. I'm objecting to an 8-foot fence.
Sorry, Mayor.
Councilor.
Thank you. Okay, so at this point, there is no way to encroach on, and I understand what you're saying, but at this point, there's no more, there would be further encroached upon, it just appear like a larger, it would raise it up a foot and a bit, just under 2 feet. But that would give that blockage between you and
It would be a 2-foot. Over top of my 6-foot fence.
exactly
There is no altering of the ground there, so
right,
it is 100%. It would be 8 feet, and I object to the 8 feet
right,
going over the bylaw, going along the side of the house, other than the existing fence.
right, okay, and do you see the benefit of not having to see your neighbors by doing that?
I don't see them now. I'm 5'2".
And he's taller than me.
Okay.
And those shrubs will soon be, one is already taller than me.
Yeah.
If you know anything about white cedars, they can grow to 12 feet, 15 feet in diameter, and go 25 to 30 feet high.
The purpose is for noise blocking, the acoustical, that we have a floor to ceiling window there that we're trying to stop the hammering of the noise coming through and resonating through our front room and up through our bedrooms and everything.
So I question why a fence isn't being put along the back of the property also that block the noise. If they feel that it's coming around the front, why is it coming around the back? I think it's a valid question.
I think that's sort of okay, we're not gonna, go ahead, Natasha, sorry.
So with the understanding that our bylaw allows just roughly a 6-foot fence, the current existing 6-foot, and understanding that that would be the one that they would allow without going to immediate debate between the two or allowing or disallowing. I would have to be in favor of allowing the sound fence to run to the existing fence, but not to go past further than the existing. That's my opinion on it. But
My question would be, would you consider a 6-foot sound barrier fence in that front section?
as long as it's the same as matches.
You
that's
don't need
exactly-
to grant an exemption for that because it's allowed as of right.
Okay.
I mean, 8 foot up to what was existing, and then if they want to, sorry, not the existing, but up to where the existing fence is, but not up to where, and if they want to continue it past the existing, they would have to stay at bylaw height, because that's what
That's
we
it,
set. Yeah,
Okay,
that's mine.
Councillor Austin.
Just clarifications, if I could ask. Because I can't remember, the 6-foot fence that runs from the back of the property up towards the house, does it end at the back corner of the house or does it continue on?
It's a little bit past the back corner of the house,
But not all the way to
but
the
not all the way.
Stops roughly.
Okay, so then if we were to say to grant the exemption for the 8 foot on the existing fence, but to the front corner, if they wanted to add, it could only be 6'4".
Yeah, that's because that's the bylaw allows that now.
Did that keep everyone happy or?
This is an escalating situation. Originally, we had planned to build at the time. I don't know that I have any, honestly.
I just. Yeah, you know, I can see both sides are frustrating. We're just trying to come up with something with both residents be happy. Because you guys need to get on with your life and stop worrying about each other in the backyard. I mean, that's gotta be stressful for both of you. I mean, it's whatever the bickering is, it's gotta stop. We gotta help them.
They're setting on their stereo. The problem with bylaw in this town is it's not 24/7. Bylaw clocks out, they hit their gates. We get hammered. Our daughter can't sleep, we have to keep sending her away. We tried running the generator at the white noise machine to try to drown out the bass. That's how bad it is. Had we have built our fence 6'4" to the corner of the house, which was allowed at the time we built our fence, bringing that up to that 8 foot. I just don't know.
Well, if it goes to the corner of the back of the house, you've got the bricks all along the side of the house, like the noise isn't gonna penetrate that, like a fence is not like your house.
We have siding, and I think that's where.
Siding.
I think that's where this acoustical fence will really help us. They have bricks and 0 windows, and we have lots of windows inside and when we get hammered, it is hard. It's late in the evening. Our little girl's too young to be having earplugs and everything that we have to use. We've had to go to a hotel. I myself have been hospitalized with migraines frequently. The constant bass, even at low level, causes nausea. It's really bad. At a
Base
low
is turned
level-
off and it's remained on. It's verified by Justin Harris.
Justin Harris isn't in our home at 9, 10, 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. When bylaw is not available.
Okay, well, we're trying to keep everybody happy. I mean,
And I know when you're
We're
there
not
and you
doctors.
visit. And they invite you out, I'm certain that base is a wonderful level. For you to visit at that point in time. We have been told, I believe, that alcohol is a factor at times.
but if bylaw is called, the Hamleys don't know bylaw is called, and if bylaw comes. Bylaw will try and observe sound levels, and then they
And
will,
that's where
then they will.
there's no actual decibel in the bylaw, so bylaw has stood in my home and heard the bass. And actually witnessed the chimes being bashed by hand as well. At one point, I was asked if they wanted them to speak to the Hamleys, and I had said, you know, long for the weekend, I need to be able to work, and if they're spoken to,
and you block out because they weren't available, we're gonna get punished. And that's what we're living in.
You know, and I think you have this misconception, because I think you have. And I know, I don't use, purposely do that.
Well, that's what I
So,
can't
so you
understand.
have a sensitivity, and I'm very aware of that. Yeah, and I'm trying to resolve the situation.
So when I brought their attention that the flagpole was hanging and I buy them a new flagpole, they responded with putting up chimes. Multiple chimes, big chimes, chimes with rockets in the middle, clanging. And that is where I have a hard time as well, when I'm told that they're nice people, why would they want to respond in that manner to someone who does suffer with migraines? And so that's where this acoustical fence, and they're all along the property line. So if we can get that. Right now, we're on the hooks for the big chimes that's right in between the homes. It is higher than our fence right now, so if we have that little bit extra,
But I don't think that. I don't think the Hammons are doing anything wrong, and I don't think that you are making this up. I believe both of you. So we're trying to find a solution, not appease both of you. And we will not be able to do that, but we try, because I understand that you have a sensitivity. And I understand.
I would invite anyone to try to come and live in my home, have the 5-6 hour time span of this space and not get a headache. My
And
husband's probably
yeah,
the most
back to-
patient person I know, and he's struggling. My mom, I know, we've got plenty of.
Factor in, it's 10 and 11 o'clock at night, and some people have to get up. I know there is no sound bylaw as of,
No,
but
no, it's
there's
not
no
that.
quiet hour anymore.
Like, I have to tell you, when somebody's leaving notes, we get complaints from all the neighbors.
Yeah.
So that's a problem that we have, we're not getting any.
So this isn't true. I go to bed at 9:30 at night because I get up at 4:45. So it's not running till 10, 11, 12, 1 o'clock at night during the week. Are we up till 11 o'clock at night on the weekend? Probably. But the sound is not. I feel bad for Ms. Ireland that she has this condition. But I've lived in that house for 27 years. We have had a pool cabana and pool for 17, and we've never had an issue. We've never had the previous owner come to us and say, the house shakes, can you turn it down? We've turned the base off, it's been off permanently. The equalizer is set at flat. The volume is at the volume that Mr. Osner witnessed. That's what we play it at. It's not overly loud, you can barely hear it from the house. Outside the house, you can barely hear it, you certainly can't feel it.
Okay,
You
so-
can hear more our pool pump and the air conditioning.
Okay, so let's.
So just, if I just add to that, like I know stereo equipment pretty good. I've seen the unit that he has. And I'd be absolutely amazed if I could shake a house. Like it's a small, narrow unit.
But it's not our job to question.
No, I know it's
Our
not,
job is to do this,
but
so
at the
that's
same token, you know, we gotta get some
And we
some
have a child-
facts.
Like we have a
This is
child
not
that is
for
like, mommy,
debate.
I can't sleep,
Yeah.
right?
Okay, so this is not for debate. We are up to a motion now. I'll read
Okay.
the motion. She will make a recommendation. We will vote.
All right, moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Holman, that bylaw report number 11-2024 be received and that council grant a partial variance to fence bylaw 3473-24 to allow 2.44 meter high acoustical privacy fence extending from the rear lot line along the existing fence located on the east property line at 152 Mitchell Street, measured at average grade.
So that's third vote, yeah.
That's defined as the existing fence.
Existing lot line on the east property. All those in favor?
I'm not sure if it's lining up exactly, sorry. I'm not sure if it's lining up with exactly what we said, so I just.
Doesn't matter, you have to vote. This is the motion now, the discussion's ended, now we have to vote on whether to say yes or no.
I would like to make the motion, like. Okay, that's fine.
Yes.
I understand.
So, all those in favor? Opposed? And it's carried, thank you. Okay. Now. 52.4 report, Rockland Road. Councilor Tilly, you have the motion.
Moved by myself, seconded by Council Osmer, that PD 13.2.4 PD report number 37/2024 ZC 03-2419 Rockland Road, that PD report number 37-2024 be received, and that bylaw number 3499-20-24 being a bylaw to remove the holding H symbol from the property located at 19 Rockland Road, Part 5 of Schedule A, zoned Z.9 hyphen dash H, and subject to site specific exemption 20.1.33 be enacted.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Councilor Rowland and 5 road, please.
Myself by Councilor Wilms, he report 38-2024 SP 0324 1346 Clyde Road, that report number PD 38-2024 be received. And that approved bylaw number 3498-24 being a bylaw to further amend bylaw number 2105-05 site and control bylaw to exempt the land which addressed as 1346 Clyde Road in the site plan control process for the purpose of erecting 3.5 meters squared buildings to store golf carts and equipment.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. And next, Councilor Austin, Chief Factory Road Heritage.
Well, myself,
Oh, I'm sorry, one moment, please, Councilor Rowland.
regards to the 1807 cheese factory, I have a question through you, Madam Mayor, to the building department, chief building official. With regards to heritage properties, the best practice for heritage property additions is generally look at what the ACO or look at the regional water practical conservation guide for heritage properties. One of the key tenets is to make sure the addition is subordinate to the existing house. In this case, what we have is an important heritage property. We're adding on a large addition. The large addition is towering over the existing property, existing house. And through heritage conservation practices, this is not how it's normally done. So I'm not happy with this proposal. In fact, what should happen is the addition should be smaller in scale and lower than the existing height of the heritage house. And that the architect should know these principles and should be trying to build something that's more in keeping with the current home and recognize the heritage importance of this home.
Building department have any comments? I know, usually doesn't this stuff come to us usually, but since we don't have a heritage group anymore, Council Wills.
Yeah, I was wondering if this needs to get deferred until the Heritage Advisory Committee that we're sitting at has had a chance to look on it and provide comments, because this feels like a big thing for someone like me to vote on, especially since I don't particularly have expertise in this. Thank you.
Are there any legal implications for us deferring this CO? No. Okay, so, Councilor Austin, would you please read the motion? And,
So moved by myself, second by Councilor Shelley, that PD report 3924-1807 Cheese Factory Heritage. That PD report 39-2024 be received, and that the cultural heritage impact assessment report completed by Spencer R. Higgins, Architect Incorporated, dated June 6, 2024 be accepted. And that council approve the proposed design indicated the altercations and changes that will be made to the designated property. And that direction is provided to the chief building official, and that there are no concerns with the issuance of a demolition permit for the removal of the detached woodshed structure and the sunroom attached to the residential building located at 1807 Chief Road. And that the owner be permitted to construct a future garage coach house building without the requirement of further heritage approvals, provided that plans are complementary to the existing residents and are to the satisfaction of the township of North Dumfries. So, sorry, Madam Mayor, doesn't that last
Yeah, that last part,
paragraph say that
it has to be
it
complimentary.
has to come to us for approvals on design? Like, am I?
No, it says provided the plans are complementary to the existing residents and are satisfaction of the town.
And are to the satisfaction of the town. Is that good enough or no?
Councillor Tilly,
I'm gonna, Council Roman, or through Mayor to Council Roman, with your experience, I used to do a lot of house building. In my opinion, that the structure that would be there after it's built is a nice looking structure. It's not, I don't know enough about heritage to speak to this. But if with my untrained understanding of that, this looks like it would be a nice big house, but would give a complement to the area. I would like to see it if I saw it from the drawings I see. But are you saying, and this is where I'm just asking for some feedback, is what is there that you're seeing that I'm not seeing, if you don't mind? Sorry.
Councillor.
Madam Mayor, through you to Councillor Tilly. So one of the things I learned when I was on the ACO and when I was here in the township a lot of years, is that when you're doing addition to existing designated heritage property, one key things is that you don't want to damage the significant aspects of the house, which they're doing. They're not damaging anything. The other thing is you want to keep it sort of within the historic characteristic of the house, which having this large addition, that would never have been done in colonial times. They would have had the, summer kitchens or the driving sheds or the different additions, all would have been smaller and diminutive in contrast to the main house. So the Regional Waterloo has published a thing called the Practical Conservation Guide to Heritage Properties. And if you read that, one of the key tenets is that all additions should appear to be different from the existing house, so you know where the old house is. The other thing is they want it to be subordinate, they want it to be smaller, so when you look at the property, you're immediately drawn to the heritage house, see, wow, that's an important building. And then, sure, there's additions that can be, I don't know, additions to be big and sprawling and whatever, but they shouldn't dominate and overwhelm the existing house, and that's my concern, is that you're gonna lose appreciation for the heritage because all you're gonna see is this giant addition and this tiny little heritage house in the front. And that's something that in heritage, when you're concerned about heritage, you have to always fight to try and preserve the importance of the heritage house or the heritage property. So that's something I see.
Now, this is Bill Schneider's house. Are you aware of it? It's a gorgeous house, absolutely gorgeous. And I was overwhelmed by the drawings. I really was. So the motion has been read. All those in favor? Opposed? Defer. Okay. Yeah, sad. We love that. Okay, we are 20 McRae Street. Yes, oh, sorry, Councilman.
Do we need to entertain a separate motion to bring this forward to the Heritage Advisory Committee?
Well, if council tonight or at the September 9th meeting strikes a committee, then our practice in accordance with legislation would be to take it to the Heritage Advisory Committee. So if you have a committee,
Right.
you are obligated to consult with them.
So we can't do that.
You do not have a committee and you have not had one since you came to office.
No, no problem. So Council Williams, can I have a motion, please? 20 McRae Street.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Williman, at 13.27, the PD report number 40-2024 of 20 McRae Street, Plan 552 be received, and that council recognized Plan 552 as a registered plan for a subdivision for the purpose of splitting the existing property identification number PIN to create two separately conveyable parcels of land at 20 McGrady Street.
All those in favor? Karen, thank you. You ready with Michael?
Sure.
Is it exciting for you?
Oh,
Oh, we looked at what the next one is. Public Works Report 14/2024, North Dumfries Community Complex Twin Pad Design and Class B Cost Estimate. Is there a presentation seal with you?
Nope, there is not.
Okay, Counselor, you have the book to read?
So, Madam Mayor, there's a registered delegation. to
Oh,
speak to this
Michael,
item.
go ahead, Michael.
I was gonna speak, I'm gonna try and cut out a lot of this because it's straight on, that's probably one of the most.
Meetings at 10, 15 hours long.
Yeah, a few more hours. I will cut out some sections here. Okay. Thank you to the council for allowing me to speak today regarding the report submitted by the township staff with respect to the NDCC Twin Pad Design and Cost B estimate. My name is Mike Plain. I'm here representing the rest of the charity called the Center for the Community Group, better known as ECG. This is my third time presenting to the council in support of replacing the aging undersized ACC ice surface with a new twin pad at the NDCC. So I'll not spend any time reintroducing the CCG, the good work is done. So skipping ahead, let's recap where we are today. It's important to recognize that the building of the twin pad and repurposing of the ACC is part of the township's own leader master plan since 2022, and it's in the campaign year capital forecast. The township continues to grow significantly in population, projected by the region of Waterloo to be 17,500 in 2031, a 65% increase over 10 years. We will continue to see a growth in recreation requirements and increases in revenue from development fees and increases in our property tax assessment fees. Township staff have completed the drawings and estimates for the town twin pad with a high degree of accuracy, including substantial contingency and generous allowances for inflation and green upgrades. Township staff have identified a federal grant program, the Green Inclusive Community Building Fund, or GICB, that would cover over 55% of the cost of the twin pad. There is a short window of opportunity, however, for the submission of the application. That's basically now. By meeting the net zero requirements and co-located, I have to throw in net zero requirements, really good discussion. By meeting the net zero requirements and co-locating the main ice facilities at the NDCC, there should be substantial operating cost savings for the township versus the continuing to operate, versus continuing to operate aging energy efficient ACC ice systems. In summary, we are shovel ready for the twin pad and have a once in a generation opportunity for substantial government funding in the very short term. Plus, township staff are working towards being well positioned for the longer term repurposing of the ECC. I heard the comment that the twin pad addresses the needs of the few rather than the needs of the many, and is therefore not a worthy community investment. With all due respect, that is wrong. Let me elaborate. Township's leisure master plan survey identified that 49% of household respondents use our green facilities. There's a very high utilization rate of the existing two pads in this community. Disruption caused by the breakdowns of the ice plant at the ACC this past year is a painful reminder of how much we need two reliable ice surfaces in this community. The Air Centennial Student B team regularly plays in front of large crowds. The AMHA and Air Rockets have reported record levels of enrollment. Our minor hockey programs run multiple tournaments requiring two reliable ice surfaces. The need for two regulation of ice surfaces is indisputable. Tim Berry and the Air Centennials eloquently addressed council regarding the twin pad last year, including the missed opportunities to run more development camps, events, and combines by not having two reliable regulation sized ice surfaces. The preceding 2 points highlight that the twin pad affords the township the opportunity to meet local needs, but also draws in from outside the township to the benefit of local businesses. I trust that the councils have been met. Even Herb, Golden Harvest, Tim Hortons, and other local establishments during minor hockey tournaments
the ongoing economic development benefits those places, their owners and their employees self-evident. At the CCG, we are big believers that recreational facilities and community hub are of substantial social benefit to our youth and families, especially in a rural township where access might be limited. The twin pad and the NDCC in general would be a great draw for the community, will pay off in terms of youth development and reduce crime. In summary, the time is now to take advantage of the federal GIC grant program and submit a proposal with the goal to build a twin pad in short order. Let's not miss this rare opportunity for community building. The CCG supports the township staff's recommendation and requests that council approve the motion to move ahead for the current next generation of our residents. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Michael. I'd also like to speak towards this, and we will see the capital forecast to Wednesday night. That debt load is going to be drastically cut because we did not build a township office building. And that's the same, that dropped our 10-year capital forecast finances. It was in the 80% range down to 30%. And then the cutback of the $4 million onto this, and then the grant money. So our time is, in my opinion, our time is right. Because if we don't do this opportunity now, and different governments get in federal aid or whatever, we may have Councilor Williams and then Councilor Tilly.
So I have a question, Madam Mayor, through you to stop, and it's, so based, so this grant is a maximum of 55%. So if all goes well, if we apply for this, we get a maximum of 55% of this amount, the 20, let's say it's 29. So it's around 11 million. Plus we still have HST to add to that. So look, we're looking at 10 million extra. So my question to staff is how much debt can we actually carry versus how much taxes are going to have to increase in order to pay that $10 million? Thank you.
CEO McNally.
So, Madam Mayor, I'll let the treasurer speak to debt capacity and how it's calculated and what this would speak to, not only in the context of this specific project, but other projects that we'll be discussing in the 10-year forecast that would also be debt financed related to the second phase of the Public Works Depot and the adaptive reuse of the ACC. We are not eligible through the grant program to claim HST. So we cannot add it into the grant amount. Okay. However, we do receive reimbursement for the HST component after the fact. So we would pay all the bills with the HST, and then we would be claiming it back. And generally speaking, we get back everything save 1.76%. So HST is a blend of 13%. Generally speaking, we forego 1.76% after the rebate. Make those submissions every 3 months. There could potentially be some aspects where we would get 100% back on an input tax credit. It's a bit of a gray area in terms of what is eligible and what isn't eligible on the HST. Okay. Conservatively, our exposure would be 1.76% of the tax. If we're successful, we'd be getting it all back through the input tax credit calculations. Okay. I'll let the treasurer speak to debt financing, how it's calculated, and the statements that Madam Mayor made about 30% versus 80%. A year ago, at our special council meeting on the 10-year forecast, we presented to you a whole range of escalating prices, limited exposure to grant opportunities, and what those implications were if you went ahead with one or more of the projects. At the time, the Township Hall was the 4th project in the 10-year forecast that would have had debt financing. Because of the value engineering exercise that Mr. Raycroft went through, and he summarized some of those key elements where savings were undertaken over the last calendar year. between those and the reduced, debt obligations, we went from 80% of what would have been our 2023 allowance in terms of how much debt we could carry, down to, or around 33% of what our 2024 allowance would be. Now, our debt is at different periods of time, and each year our assessment will grow, our own source revenues will grow. And our ARL limit, which is our allowable calculation in terms of how much debt as a payment we can carry on an annual basis, will continue to grow. We put in our discussion, you've gone from 80% of current down to 33% of current, because of some of the things that we've done collectively through successive reviews and council decisions. So in terms of how the ARL is calculated and what this means in terms of the health of the township, both in terms of how it protects reserves for other projects, but also our ability to carry it going forward, I'll let the treasurer speak to it.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Wilms. Municipalities are designed to carry debt for different projects. It's very unusual to find a municipality that has zero debt, and that is where we're going to be at the end of this year. Now, I'm not saying that we should turn around and mortgage everything. That is by no means where I would like to be. The annual repayment limit that the province sets is a function of your base revenues, and it's about 25% of the calculation for it. And that means that both the principal and the interest have to be within that calculation. So we are at, I think it's over $2 million is our annual repayment limit for 2024. So that would be your principal and interest payments for the year could be up to that number to still be eligible to be a healthy municipality in the province's view. With what we are proposing within the 10-year capital and with this one, this particular project, and apologize, I didn't get one that stays on. So we are proposing that we would be at 32% of that limit. So nowhere near the maximum debt we could have. Now, I'm not going to lie, to repay it will require a one-time tax increase that year, which depending on the timing of our assessment growth could be 5 or 6% at this point. That's my preliminary calculation. I'd like to do more details to finalize that number. That would be a one-time hit to that year on top of any other tax increases for other options that council decides at the budget period. So it will be something for it. But we have a relatively low tax rate here in the township. So sometimes when we use those percentages, they sound high, but if you calculate what they are for the average household, it's not actually a very large dollar amount. So, and that's why I do present that number when we're talking budget. So you both know the increased percentage and also what does that mean for our average household?
Councillor Tilly next, and then back to Councillor Wilms.
Mayor to treasurer as well. Just want to confirm in the statement here that, and actually we are wonderful speaker also mentioned this as well. Will we have enough time if we authorize the additional funds to still submit the package in order to get this potential grant? Is there enough time? Because it says we have to authorize the treasurer to fund an additional and retain professional services to revise. And not everybody's just aching for work and looking for stuff. Is this something that we can definitely get done in the timeline? That's the one.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Tilly. Yes, we believe that this is completely feasible. We will be working with the current architect on some of the upgrades. And then perhaps Mr. Raycroft could speak a little more to the way that he is proposing the project be managed and what that does to our timelines.
Is that a device?
That was the bus backing up. Right?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. Yes, we have time to do this, and we had anticipated, because reading the grant, we knew going in it was a net zero. We've already done a lot of the heavy lifting on the building anyway in this design, to deal with some of the things, including climate mitigation, a lot of the boxes that needed to be ticked, in order to apply for this. What we're doing now is simply taking out the gas appliances and converting to electric, which is, as Karen would say, not complicated. Because really, we already have the appliance in, we're switching it to electric, so that conversion, we're already paying a portion of that, we're now paying just a slight increase to put the new equipment in. But that said, it is existing technology, we're not pushing the envelope by any stretch, it's available. It can be done without a great deal of time and energy. We do require the architect through the grant requirements to do at the letters and to attest to the green structure itself and the net zero findings and stuff. So we will require them. We can't do it unto ourselves, but it's really just more of a technical issue where they're looking for architectural professionals to say that, yes, you will be able to do this. And yes, we can meet these timelines.
To hear that it's gonna be good money spent, that's all I was wanted to hear. Thank you.
Councilor Williams. So harking back to, we still need to cough up 10 million within the township grants. Are there other grants that we can add to this one? Because it just, when I originally thought that was this a good idea, I was really hoping that we would be able to cover more than just 55% of the cost, because there's still $10 million is not insignificant for the people here. Not everybody has that kind of money or can just take the hit of these tax increases. So are there other grants that we could also apply to, or is, and I know that, is this like something that is a one of a kind thing, or if we apply for this one, we're now moving ahead, regardless, and that's because if we are moving ahead regardless, I think I'm going to vote against this.
And we will be speaking at to the minister about funding. CEO McNeely.
So, Madam Mayor, in round numbers, the residual 10 million, if we are successful in securing the federal grant through the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, that leaves approximately round numbers about $10 million that would have to be funded. There is a 2.5 million contribution through sponsorship and community donations. It's part of the funding formula, and that's been in our mix for several years now. So that would lower that $10 million exposure by a factor of 2.5 million. And then we do have some internal reserves being brought forward, once again, to lower our tax exposure or debt exposure. And there is a small aspect of the building that is eligible for recovery through development charges, because there is additional one programming room, which is generally the size of the Dumfries room. And that would be additional programming space that's available for growth related purposes. So while the building proper, the ice surface proper isn't DC eligible because it's a replacement of an existing facility, the enhanced programming space would be. The overall debt financing in terms of, after accounting for all of these things, is $6.6 million in $25. So of the 10 million, after we account for the grant, we would be debt financing approximately $6.6 million. And what we are suggesting is taking that and debt financing it over a period of 20 years. And we have gone with a very, very conservative debenture rate. We're carrying this at 4.25% debt financed over 20 years. We don't know what 2025 or 2026 will look like in terms of prime, and what the long-term bond market will look like in terms of a debenture rate. We're confident where we are today that it won't be greater than 4.25%. So our debt financing of the approximate 6.6 could actually be at a more attractive rate than what we're carrying in our financial funding model and reserve continuity. We purposely have been conservative in terms of that interest rate factor. The other aspect is other grants. So at present, there is not another grant that I can grab on the shelf, say it applies to this project, council, let's apply for it. That being said, we didn't know about this program last year because it's only been released a few weeks ago, okay? Hence why council told us, look for grant programs, bring them to council. We got that and we have a very short period of time. We're fortunate that we've done the heavy lift and we've just got to tweak our information to be able to submit in September. Applying for the grant does not commit township council to the end project. What this does is it allows us to be eligible to submit the grant and put our hand in the cauldron and say, government, we've got a project that we want your funding for. And it's a lottery. This applies across Canada. Okay, so, you know, how successful will our project be? And, you know, would we meet all of their requirements and be within whatever dollars they're willing to release? Obviously, that decision comes back to council because if we're successful, we have to sign a contract with the federal government to actually access the dollars. We also have to go to the marketplace. We're not asking to go to the marketplace right now. We are asking council to allow us to apply for the grant because that's a key aspect or key plank to our overall funding strategy. We are asking council to allow us to come back in September with a fundraising program and the options that may be available to secure dollars through the community through either sponsorship or donations. Because if we are going to build in the 25-26 timeframe, we need to get going on raising the monies from that $2.5 million that we've notionally identified as a funding stream. The CCG has approximately $650,000 that's available. Okay, I apologize. It's $700,000 that would go toward that $2.5 million source. Pretty nice going into a funding program to raise money in the community with that money already there for momentum purposes. The other thing is, we heard in the provincial budget in April of 2024, the province announced that they were going to introduce a $200 million program for recreational facilities. And it then continued by saying spread over 3 years. As of August the 12th, when I turned off my emails at 5 o'clock, we still have not received any outline of what the terms of that program would be, what the eligibility requirements would be, you know, whether it's 3 equal installments of 67 million, or is it backloaded? None of those particulars have been released. I don't know whether or not we can stack that potential grant on top of this federal program. Sometimes you're allowed to stack, other times you can't. Until we actually see the eligibility requirements, I don't know, but it is out there. What I have shared with others when they've asked me about that other provincial grant is if we're not allowed to stack, we could use that other provincial stream to either tap into the major rehabilitation of the ACC. Because right now, in the paper that we're going to be discussing on Wednesday night, we're internally funding the major rehab through our own reserves. Or we could have potentially, once again, based on the eligibility criteria, applied against the adaptive reuse to the ACC, which would occur after the need for the ice is removed because the twin pad in theory is open. And we don't need a third ice pad. We do have debt financing proposed as part of the adaptive reuse project. If we qualify for the provincial dollars, either for the major rehab or at the adaptive reuse, what we've done is we provide more financial flexibility. Because it could potentially allow council to move more money from reserves to against the actual twin pad project. Or we could be lowering our debt requirements potentially to zero for the adaptive reuse. So there are possibilities related to that provincial program, but as we speak tonight, there is no certainty. There's no certainty on the federal grant, but unless we apply, we will never know. And this program has a window to 2029, which is the funding period. But this is the intake. And I don't know whether or not there'll be a second or a third intake if I look at calendar year 25 or 26.
I think you've already answered my first question, Steve, Millie, but I think I'll just ask it again to Mayor. What is the likeliness we get this grant if we properly prepare everything? Like, I know it's like, do you have your magic ball that can tell us the answer?
So I did rub my hair pretty hard and I glued my hair back on. There is no assurances. We will need to make MP Brian May very much aware that we're doing the grant application. He is certainly aware of the Twin Pad project and our need for senior levels of government funding. Madam Mayor and I in earlier meetings going back, 2 years plus, with MP May have made that known. We've also made it known to MPP Riddell. However, if we apply, then we will actually say, here is our package. Here is, I'm going to call it the net attributes that go beyond just what it would mean to the community, but in terms of the net zero emissions and GHG emissions and modernization, the economic opportunities that Mr. Clay touched upon and the like, with the hope that he would then champion our cause and make others known or introduce us to others that may be more are closely aligned to whoever vets scores proposals. So yes, we're going to have to do a little bit of legwork after this. It doesn't stop with filing the application, but there are no guarantees. There are no assurances. It's a crapshoot.
I asked Justin too.
Sorry, the second part, if I can continue, it actually has to do with the actual motion. At the bottom of the motion, just would like some clarification and that council adopt a construction management form of undertaking for the construction of the Twin Pad project on a future request for tender document submitted to the open marketplace to bid on the completion of this project. Does that mean at this point, if we were to agree this, that we would be putting ourselves at commitment level, or sorry, just for clarification of that statement?
So Madam Mayor, Councilor Tilley, I'm going to let Mr. Raycroft speak about the construction management aspect and why that has been identified as the preferred venue. What this resolution does, if it stands, would be when we go, future date unknown, to the marketplace to actually get a general contractor to build based on the design drawings that we have, that we would use construction management. Essentially, there's 3 different delivery models. There's design build, where you give scope of work and context of what the expectation is, and whoever the successful bidder is, designs and then builds to that dollar envelope. Okay. We have done a design build. There is what we would normally call design bid build, which is, you have your architect who's done the drawings. There's bid in the marketplace, and then you have a general contractor who builds then based on whatever was in the tender document. This NDCC was a design, bid, build scenario. We are trying to, through the construction management process, collapse a couple of stages. Time is money. And we're trying to remove as much uncertainty as possible in terms of hidden costs or cost overruns to create as much certainty around the budget as possible, as practical. So as long as you don't change the scope of work, you have mitigated or minimized some of that risk through the construction management process. But I'll let Mr. Raycroft, based on his experience in using the CM process in larger building projects, a little bit more detail as to how it works.
So through your Madam Mayor, to the councillor. So as the CEO said, there's the models, and we're using, for example, the PW building, which by the way is a net zero facility too. We didn't talk about that, but that's okay. So the advantage you have of the CM project is you don't need the construct, you don't need the project management portion of it. In this case, the CM works for you in a general contractor position, standard bid. They're working for themselves. They're working for their shareholders. They're working for their corporation. They're there to make money. The construction management, you hire them, you pay them a flat fee. They're not vested in making money off the project itself. It's a flat rate to them. What I've found is it's a much more cooperative process. They work in conjunction with the architect. They're not looking for errors and omissions where you get hit with big change orders. That's what is usually a killer on large projects. The other thing too is the CM will actually put out phases of tenders. So they'll put out the demolition, they'll put out the excavation, they'll put out the concrete work. And while it's so much like a design build, if you're tweaking stuff, when we're tweaking some of our HVAC equipment and some of the different efficiencies, we don't have to wait to do that. We don't have to redraw everything and send it out as a complete package and hope we didn't miss anything. We'll be able to do sections of tenders as we start. So there's a lot of advantages. We've used this for large construction before. We did a $20 million project with this format. It worked out extremely well. It was in a very similar situation, different building, but it was an active building that stayed open during the construction phase. That in itself is a challenge, and you have to work around that. So there's a lot of advantages with it. We just want to make sure council's aware of that. And it doesn't allow us or doesn't require us to wait to do the drawings. We can hit the road running. They can help us with the design. They can help us find shortfalls. And again, we don't have to require project management to do that, but we'll be able to manage it ourselves in conjunction with the CM.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think what I just don't fully understand is that this juncture where that's just being expressed, that this would be the process by which the work would be completed, or that we're moving towards or something. Right?
So, Madam Mayor, if I could, through to Councilor Taylor, the reason why it's in the staff recommendation, because it goes to how we develop the budget. Because if you're going to go with a design, bid, build, our cost centers are going to be different. It will adjust our budget accordingly, both for external professional services as well as contingency. Whereas this is a tighter process in terms of how the project is delivered, but also it shortens the construction window, which allows for a tighter budget number. So if council doesn't want to use the construction management program and wants to go to a traditional design, bid, build, the cost estimate that we're carrying right now that we've identified here, we would recalibrate and it would be higher.
Councilor Williams. So one of the things in this motion is to bring about some more green friendly changes and amendments to the current plan. Are we also going to then, if this doesn't turn out, would we still move forward with that? Are we making a commitment to move forward with those changes to the plan if going forward, or would we still be, because some of those changes are going to have significant costs? upfront costs, and I was just wondering with them, that would be going forward, or would we still have the original, what we have today? Would that still be in motion?
We are dealing with this option right here, right now. Should this fail and not go forward, for whatever reason we don't receive the grant, then we're at stage one again. We decide how we're gonna proceed from that way. Any other questions or comments? Can I have a motion, please, Councillor Tilly? Do we want to make him read it in its entirety?
Sure.
Oh, you nasty.
Feel embarrassed.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, I'm gonna help you. Read that fast. Thank you, sir. Moved by myself, second by Council Oster, 13.2.8, PW report 14-2024, NDCC, Twin Pad Design and Class B cost estimate. The PW report number 14-2024 be received, and that council adopt the functional layout and design of the Twin Pad project included as attachment number one to this report. And that council authorize staff to amend the scope of work for the proposed Twin Pad project to incorporate an expanded listing of green energy components to align with the eligibility requirements of the Green and Inclusive Community Buildings GICB program. And that council authorize the treasurer to fund an additional $25,000 plus HST to retain professional services to revise the architectural submission package and letter of attestation for the green energy components to align with the eligibility requirements of the Green and Inclusive Community Buildings GICB program, as administered through the Federation of Canadian Municipalities on behalf of the Government of Canada, and that the additional allocation of funds to complete the task as summarized in the recommendations above be drawn from the Energy Plus Reserve account, and that council adopt a revised project budget for the Twin Pad project in the amount of $20,606,463,000 for 2025, with an inflation escalator of 5% for each year that follows if the project is delayed to later years. And that staff be authorized to submit a grant application through the Green and Inclusive Community Buildings GICB program for the total project expenditure of $20,606,463 at $2025, and if applicable, based upon timing, eligibility requirements for a total project expenditure of $21,636,786 in 2026 dollars. And then in the 10-year capital forecast 2025 to 2034, the Twin Pad project be amended to reflect this revised project budget, timelines, and grant eligibility amount as per the summarized in this report, and that staff return to council with a report in September 2024 on the framework for a fundraising program for the Twin Pad project, and that council adopt a construction management form of undertaking for the construction of the Twin Pad project when a future request for tender document is submitted to open marketplace to bid on the competitive completion of this project.
All those in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Okay. Next, Schmidt Park Memorial Park drainage improvements. Councilor Rowan, please.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Wilms, that P report number 15-2024 be received, and that council award the Jim Schmidt Memorial Park drainage improvements to CO Construction Limited in the amount of $58,570 plus HST, and that council approve contingency for drainage improvements of $5,000 inclusive of net HST, and the treasurer be authorized to fund the project from the contingency price reserve.
Councilor Wilms, go ahead.
I just have a clarification, and Madam Mayor, here you just is this also going to address the marshy area between the playground and the hill? That was my question.
All the heads for nodding.
Both locations.
All those in favor? Yes. Thank you. Next is the footbridge and Piper Street Bridge Assessment and Design. And that's Councilor Oshner.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Tilling. PW report 16-2024 ND-2024-C4 C5-RFQ. Footbridge and Piper Street Bridge Assessment and Design, that PD report number 16-2024 was received. And the council approved the award of contract ND 2024-C4, C5-RFQ for Footbridge and Piper Street Bridge Assessment and Design in amount of $97,000 plus HST to SAPA Engineering Inc. And that a project contingency of $22,392.80 net of HST rebate be established, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute any necessary documents to facilitate the completion of this project.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. And former air tennis courts donation. Councilor Wilms.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Roman, that council receive REC report number 18-2024. And that council accept the cash donation of $4,350.45 minus any bank account deduction fees from the former Air Tennis Club to be allocated towards providing tennis lessons, clinics, and our workshops to North Douglas youth in 2025. And that the treasurer be directed to set up a temporary reserve account to recognize the donation of the former Air Tennis Club with the intent that the funds be introduced into the 2025 operating budget for the purposes of offering free or subsidized delivery of tennis instruction for the township's youth. And that a letter of thanks for the donation be forwarded to the executive of the former Air Tennis Club for the man.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. And now we have the sign variance for 1125 Bright Road. Councilor Tim, please.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Osmer, 13.2 plus 0.12. Building report number 01-2024, sign variance for 1125 Bright Road. The building report BLG DG report 01-2024, and that council grant a variance under sign bylaw number 2491-12 for 1125 Wright Road for the following: 1, to allow setback reduction from 3 meters to a minimum of 1 meter, 9.8 feet to 3.2 feet from the lot lines. 2, to allow increased height from sign from 10.67 meters, 35 feet from the permitted allowance of 7.5 meters to 24.6 feet. And 3, to allow an increased area of the sign from to 21 meters or 226 square feet from the permitted allowance of 10 meters, which is 107.6 square feet.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Policy for the Benevity Fund. Oh, is that Councilwoman, please?
Okay. Moved by myself, so by Councilor Wilms, that FIN report number 17-20 received. The council approved relation of Benevity Cause Portal to support the North Dumfries Pump Track project, specifically the fundraising aspect of that project. And that council authorized the chief administrative officer and the treasurer / director of corporate services to approve the utilization of similar requests in the future, subject to the following principles. A, only requests from organizations that have a memorandum of understanding containing a fundraising component of township assets will be considered. B, all fees for service are paid from funds raised. And C, control of the website service and content will be maintained by the township staff.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Township Transit Strategy. Councilor Osmer.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Tilly. CA report 15-2024, township strategy. The CAO report number 15-2024 be received for the purposes of information.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Correspondence, a letter from AMO, call to action, social and economic prosperity review. Can I have a motion for that?
Yes, there's an option.
Councilor
Yeah, there are 2 options here, so I'll pick one. All right, moved by myself, seconded by Councilwoman, that the letter from AMO call to action, social and economic prosperity review be received for the purposes of information.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Dr. Tilly, you're up.
We experienced what happened here in the council chambers. What's going on between these two neighbors as well. There's a difference of opinion on how somebody should take care of owls that are over and they're taking under property. And I've been asked to just delve in a little bit further as to why you're getting the answers they are, that Mr. Cabral is giving the answers he is. And I went and met with him on Thursday and looked at it. And I can appreciate in both, you know, if you have a properties of agriculture, that you should be able to do certain things. But when your property, if you have several acres, is limited to a marsh area that the cows can't use. I guess my question really comes down to, is there a hazardous issue when it comes to where the comfortability of a neighbor is lost because of the fact that there's stuff being put into the water? Now, I don't claim to have the insight to decide what that is. I'm just claiming that I was there and I saw the circumstances that they're referring to, that Mr. Cabral is referring to, in the way of that it's not idealistic in how the neighbor's housing is pet cows. His complaint to staff, bylaw staff, has been that the property is not being kept up, and that our bylaw officers have been told that there's going to be some repair to the situation, or less cleaning up, and then it hasn't been done. And Mr. Cabral just doesn't want to get involved any further than he has to, but he'd like his thoughts shared in the, he feels it's an unfair situation he's been placed in, where he has someone that he can't feel like he can communicate with. And so he has contacted bylaw to do the communication with him, and just feels like it's nothing happening in 2 years. So my statement was complete. Now my question comes to, was there anything discovered in the path? And I understand George went to the site last week, and if there was anything that came from that.
See you now.
So Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Tilly. Yes, bylaw went out again as recently as this weekend, but bylaw has been out there several times, and there were improvements made to the property consistent with direction from bylaw staff. So there were certain things that were put inside the building, or in the process of being put inside buildings. Vehicles are licensed now, where they were unplated before. And yes, there continues to be farm equipment, but that's not inconsistent with what's allowed in an agricultural zone. There's nothing that said they have to be within historic buildings. The primary concern has been presented to staff is the odor from manure, remembering that these are grazing cattle. So we have certain limitations under provincial legislation, and specifically the Farming and Food Production and Protection Act. This piece of legislation does a bunch of things. It defines what agriculture is and what constitutes agriculture. And there's no threshold in terms of how many animals are being raised that warrants a definition of a farm versus a hobby farm or something equivalent to that. It just talks about the growing, producing, or raising, and in this specific aspect, livestock, poultry, or ratites. But it gives a whole bunch of range of agricultural activities. If there was a barn structure that was equivalent or have by design that could raise and shelter, in this case, cattle, then there's an obligation to do a calculation under the nutrient management plan. How much waste is being generated? How's it being stored? And how's it being applied to the land during the more seasonable times of the calendar year? There is no structure that's designed to house animals using grazing. So the nutrient management plan doesn't qualify because there's no structure. Then there is an aspect It's a regulation that flows out of the Farming, Food and Production and Protection Act that talks about temporary field storage of manure or manure products. And this is where a farmer may take dry matter or solid matter that is coming from a barn operation and putting it at the side of a field, because in the weeks or months to come, they're going to be physically applying it onto those fields as part of their nutrient program. We have some examples of where animals are, I'm thinking specifically of chicken barns. You don't want cross-contamination from one flock to the next. So you literally clean out the barn when the flock is moved to market and you start new. Well, it's not uncommon, depending upon the time of the year, to see that manure moved to an adjacent field or an area of field and it's stored until, you know, it can be applied to the land and incorporated. This is a temporary field storage of manure by definition or content. So there is very few vehicles that we have other than be a good neighbor and try and work with your neighbor approach. And that's what's been taken to date. But in terms of being able to enforce something, in terms of being able to bring orders, we have very few vehicles. Now, there is, through this legislation, a means that are protecting area farms against nuisance complaints made by neighbors. And there's a provincial tribunal, and the tribunal will hear the arguments and determine, based on the presentations made, whether or not the activities or the threshold of activities for that specific parcel are appropriate in the context of the land holding and reflects what they call normal farm practices. Okay. There is an appeal mechanism where you can refer to the tribunal, and then there is a tribunal. It is different than the Ontario Land Tribunal. They have tried to make this less complicated and not requiring expert professional testimonies. Okay. And they would hear the arguments about, I'll call the nuisance factors. And it was one of the things that the ministry communicated to the adjacent landowner as part of that screenshot that formed part of your email. Okay. So staff has previously communicated what's available, including the forms that can be filled out and the submission. If they're not satisfied that reasonable safeguards approach nuisance factors aren't being dealt with. And then there's an independent tribunal that hears the arguments and is in a position to render orders if the tribunal finds that the individual isn't properly handling the property with the agricultural practices and it does not reflect normal farm practices.
Could, sorry, and you fully explained that. I don't think you go any further with that one. Would you be able to email that stuff to me, and then I could go see Mr. Cabral again and deal with that? I also do plan on meeting the other neighbor as well, because I haven't met him as well. So, looks like to hear both sides. But no, that sounds like what he was looking for. He did, Mr. Cabral did engage a lawyer. And that was part of the reason why I forwarded this emails over, was that he said the lawyer said the first step was to engage this council member, and then and this is why I brought it to council to get some mutual information and some support in a situation I haven't actually dealt with before. So so I appreciate that. That would be fantastic. Send that over. I think that's all that Mr. Cabral wanted to do.
Did you have any questions?
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Ottner, that the email chain of August 7th, 2024, and earlier from Dennis Cabral concerning manure from grazing cattle and other matters to be received for the purpose of information.
All those in favor? Carrie, thank you.
Moved by myself, and by Councilor Wilms, that council move into a closed meeting session at 9:14 PM pursuant to this act section 2392 B to discuss C report 63/2024, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the Dalton Local Board, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, and personal matters about identifying an individual, including municipal board, local board employees, municipal act section 2392 B. And CLT report 1024, consideration of parish advisory committee appointment, personal matters about identifiable individual, including member, including municipal or local board employees, municipal act section 2392 B.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Everything goes on?
You just shut your cameras. You can just shut your cameras because we'll go back live after. Yes.
Thank you.
Moved by myself, second by Council Roman. That council reconvene into open session at 9:49 PM.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Business arising from closed council, provided direction to township legal counsel and staff on next steps related to a disposition of the matter discussed during today's closed session. As this matter relates to an identifiable individual and is part of a human resources file, no further reporting will be undertaken through council. What did come out of closed is moved by Council Rooms and seconded by Council Tui, that the following members be appointed to the Heritage Advisory Committee: Mary Jean Page, Phil Roman, Jamie Gadsden, Ben Benninger, Irene Adney, Heidi Osner, and Councillor Roman. And that council introduce appointment bylaw number 3502-24 for the Heritage Advisory Committee at the September 9th, 2024 council meeting.
Sorry, it's tonight.
At the August 12th. Council meeting. So I'm going to read that statement again, and that council introduced appointment bylaw number 3502-24 for the Heritage Advisory Committee at the August 12th, 2024 council meeting. All those in favor? Carried, thank you. And Councillor Osner, the motion or the bylaws, please. First and second reading.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Chili, that the following bylaws be read a fifth and second time. 19.1, bylaw number 3498-24 being a bylaw to exempt construction of accessory structure at 1346 Clyde Road from site plan control bylaw 2105-05. 19.2, bylaw number 3499-24 being a bylaw to release the holding provision 19 Rockland Road. And 19.3, bylaw number 3500-24, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council on August 12th, 2024.
All those.
Wait.
Sorry, we need to add the bylaw for the appointment.
-24, being a bylaw to the. Okay, do I read this one now, Councilor Watson? And then I got you, thank you.
Can I just read the last one?
Yeah, go ahead. Yes, we can.
And 19.4, 3502-24 being a bylaw to appoint members to the Heritage Advisory.
Councilor Roman, will you read? Councilor Roman, read third reading of the bylaws. and
Madam
here-
Mayor, you need to vote on that first.
Pardon me? Oh, all those in favor? Okay, Councilor Roman, this is the amended one, so the 3502-24, you got that? Okay.
Moved by myself by Council Williams, that bylaws number 3498-24, 3499-24, 3500-24, and 3502-24 be read the third and final time and to be signed and sealed by the mayor and acted on.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Oh, what is this one? Is this the adjournment? Oh, Councillor Austin, would you read the agenda, please?
Sure. Moved by myself,
Seconded by Councillor Rowland. That whereas business before this council meeting has been completed at 9:54 PM and be it resolved that this meeting adjourned.
All those in favor? Have a wonderful evening.